Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Lost Lieutenant. This episode, I'm your host, Jacob, and I'm joined by
Josh.
And Nick.
and in today's episode, we will be covering the new resilience, new objective deck. The new classified deck, as well as the resilience cards and the battlefield condition cards. So the entire gambit of cards needed to participate in the resilience operations. But before we get into that, let's just do a quick catch up. Let's say, Nick, what have you been up to?
I've been busy with non-Infinity stuff, unfortunately. I had some games lined up for tomorrow and found out after I wrote the show notes that the shop will not be open tomorrow. So, hopefully next week.
Wait, which shop?
Throw the dice.
Oh, okay, cool. We're still good.
Geelong.
We're still golden, Josh. We're still golden. Yes.
Yeah, no, we're still playing us.
East side superiority.
Yeah.
Have you been involved?
Models.
Have you done any just like hobby stuff in general?
Been getting some models together. Got a Farzan together. Been working on some objectives for the table. So.
Yeah, you've I think have you been getting a lot of compliments on your table that you brought to a couple of the recent tournaments? Because I know very much I like the way you put it together. What everyone else saying?
Yeah, I've gotten a fair number of compliments. That it's just kind of a unique geometry. And I'm looking forward to finishing getting the garage set up so that I have room to spray it all.
Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't had the pleasure of seeing Nick's table, at the moment it's not painted, but it's this it's like styrofoam.
It's foam core.
Yeah, foam scenery, but and it's got sort of the standard pieces you see, like billboards and all those sorts of things, stairs and all those, but it's just, I don't know, the way it's put together, it's sort of like, you know, when you look at Brutal Cities or you look at what are the Kiwi guys called? Battle Kiwi. Oh, fucking shit. You know, you look at their terrain, you know that it's their terrain. I feel like what you put together, Nick, if you like made a product line of it, I would know that it's Nick's terrain.
The whole battlefield feels cohesive. It feels like you've put it together in a way, and like we're just being overtly complimentary to Nick, but he deserves it. So, it sort of feels like a lot of tables sort of feel like just a bunch of buildings put onto a mat and then we play Infinity around it.
Yeah.
Whereas the table that you've put together feels like it's like a cohesive kind of cityscape, and like it's well planned out, which is
that actually might be the other thing. I think it probably feels more in scale than a lot of other tables go, because I think a lot of scenery that you see for Infinity is like really like small, like the models are massive compared to the rooms, which is just, you know, the nature of the beast, unless you actually, because in reality, in an Infinity operation would either be, you know, you'd be playing on like a huge like apocalypse table with the army you normally field for it to be in scale, or it'd be like a room.
Actually, that's a good point, because a lot of commercially available terrain is designed to accommodate multiple scales that are close to each other. But that way they can sell it to multiple different lines and multiple different games. Whereas this one, each of the measurements is specific to Infinity.
Yeah, or it's like it's meant for games where like scale, like proper scale doesn't matter, like Warhammer, where like really the scale on Warhammer doesn't make any sense.
They're vague suggestions, and the rule of cool overrides any scale.
Yeah, exactly. Josh, what have you been up to?
Since last recording, I think I've played one game. I played a game of Resilience Ops with Tristan, with a janky printed out copy of the deck from the leaks. I promise that I do have mine on my way. I got a tracking number confirmation.
That's right. I didn't even think of that. So Josh and I have gone in with an order. I didn't even think about the fact that the classified deck would be part of it. I was just
Yeah.
looking forward to the blackjack I
Well,
ordered.
that's the reason. That's the reason that it's the reason it's taken so long. Is because the classified decks were
Well, the whole like what's the month that just passed? September release was sort of delayed till mid-October.
yeah. So I think it was
Early
like
October.
storms and
Yeah.
things stopping some things. But like the Resilience Ops it's a fantastic addition to the game. I think that it will be like our sort of predictions last week, or last time we were on. It will become my standard sort of pickup game if I'm not prepping for a tournament. Like, oh, I just want to play Game Infinity. We play some Resilience Ops. You can bring any list to it. It sort of it has sort of like a you don't need specialists, but you still need a diverse list because it requires you to have 4 deploying elements and like hidden things and all that kind of stuff because you don't know whether you need to be defensive or aggressive or if you really just need to kill 4 pesky turrets because that's the battlefield condition that you've drawn.
I will ask you to hold on until we get to the main thing. I really want to be like pick your brain about the game that you played, but unfortunately we can't right now.
No.
Maybe save that for the general thoughts after resilience cards.
Yeah. So yeah, luckily Josh managed to get a game in during like from the leak.
Yeah, and there was 2 games of Resilience Ops played because I printed off 2 decks. So 2 games of Resilience Ops played last week at House of War. So I polled everybody there and asked them how it all went. So I've got not just my own thoughts, but the thoughts of 3 other
awesome.
local players.
Awesome. I unfortunately I wanted to actually take part in Shattered Grounds. Unfortunately, just couldn't find a game. I don't know what happened last week, but yeah, stuff just wasn't happening. So I don't think any of us have really participated or followed the Shattered Grounds global tournament yet.
No, I'm part of the JSA Discord, so I've been watching them scatter. I participated pretty heavily in Dogama, and I just didn't have the wherewithal to to do it this time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's always hard. I always found it kind of hard to just you have to like settle on a faction for the time. I didn't notice there wasn't a huge amount of like the bonuses they had for the missions weren't massive because I think unlike other campaigns where they've made their own missions for the certain areas, these ones were just missions from ITS 15 with oh well actually it was ITS 14 because I think cryogenics was one of them.
It was.
Yeah, with like a couple of small bonuses at the end of them. So I think I was thinking of playing Aleph, and I think the bonus for their place was aquatic terrain gets parachutist, which I would have found funny because that meant Pano gets. Well, I was thinking more of Pano being able to drop in the. Don't the cutters have terrain aquatic?
Oh, they do.
Yeah. It was that, or it was
Terrain total.
is well, it doesn't matter. The same thing. There's also but I was also thinking devil dogs have terrain aquatic because they're part of the US Marine Corps.
I think the JSA one had the same one that they had last time, which was 0.5 SWC tags.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was
very interesting going up against an avatar.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Is like, oh my god, it's just the combined army are going to flood into that area. Right.
The JSA holding on to it. That's all I know. Yeah, that's all I know about Shadowgrounds is the JSA holding on to their spot.
Yeah. But yeah, take a look if you're interested in taking part of the campaign run by On the Tabletop.
It's got a week left or so, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, so the first phase, so it generally goes in 2 phases, one over. So it's done over 2 weeks, one each week, one phase a week, I think.
Stretched
So-
out longer than that this time.
It's about it's more than
Oh,
2
so
weeks now.
there's 5 more days as of the time of recording, so probably what
probably be
4
resolved by the
days
time.
left
Yeah.
after. Yeah.
So unfortunately, if you're here for your Shadowground news, none of us have been watching it particularly closely. Anyway, let's move on from our catch up to take a look at our announcements. So we'll go into our challenge announcements. Nothing much has changed from our last episode. So the August, September, and now October monthly challenge, again, due to the delay and us getting the classified deck, is the monthly challenge is to play a game with reinforcements. There has been there probably is still a bit of debate about whether people like reinforcements or not, and so we want our listeners to get some experience to give a bit more of an educated opinion or experienced opinion on whether reinforcements is a good, bad, or thing for the game of Infinity. It's quite a significant change, so we'd love for you to put in your reports to lostlieutenant@gmail.com. And at the end, 3 random winners, or 3 random submissions will be picked as winners to get a blister of their choice from Toy Soldiers Imports. Also extended from quarter 3 to quarter 4 is the Hobby Challenge, which is the write a narrative story. Here at Lost Lieutenant, we have always tried to drive people to express their sort of creative side through the lens of Infinity. And for quarter 3 and 4, we're asking you guys to write us a short narrative story. The Infinity Universe has a rich and diverse background with a lot of source books to choose from Endsong all the way back to Paradiso, like the old Human Sphere books. Maybe there's a unit in your army that's performed so heroically that you think they deserve a story about themselves, or maybe there's a bit of headcanon that you finally want to put into writing. Now's your chance to express yourself through the form of the written word. Please try and stick to no more than 2,000 words, as these are supposed to be short stories. Alternatively, you can submit a 10-minute audio recording of you reading out your narrative, and send either of those into lostoflieutenant@gmail.com. At the end of the quarter, we'll pick our favorites and give them a white noise treatment where we'll read them out, or if you've sent a recording, play the recording as part of our show. Because this has been done over 2 quarters, we will also pick 2 random entries to win a small box of their choice from Toy Soldiers Imports. Okay, so on to events. I'm going to say, Nick, you can do Stone Monkey.
Yeah. So we've got Stone Monkey Monthly coming up for Darwin. It's going to be on the 28th of October. They'll have another monthly event at Stone Monkey, 350 points featuring bee pong, and last launch. Further details can be found on Stone Monkey's Facebook page.
Cool. Josh, you want to cover Throw the Dice?
Yeah, so we got the Throw the Dice Infinity Store Championship in for this year, 2023. It's Throw the Dice in Geelong, Victoria. Great little store. On the 18th of November. 300 points, 3 rounds, which are Supremacy, Firefight, and Highly Classified. There is a painting requirement. All lieutenants must be fully painted and based, which is going to be interesting for Firefight. Winner goes on to the Throw the Dice Hall of Fame wall, and sign up and details can be found on the Throw the Dice Facebook page.
Yeah, we mentioned last time we spoke about Throw the Dice. This tournament is it's an interesting requirement to say that you have to have your lieutenants painted up, because it technically doesn't force you to paint your entire army, but also is technically, at the very least, you should paint every possible lieutenant in your army. So it's an interesting way of both allowing anybody to play, but still having that sort of how you get into the hobby sort of thing.
Yeah, they've just started their community. The community's had a little bit of a revitalization, and there are a couple of new players down there now. So having a bit of a hobby requirement will be good. But I believe that there's a few Melbourneites going down to that store championship. So I'm saying there's probably going to be a bit of a Shark Tank down there, as those Geelong tournaments sometimes are.
Next up, we've got the South Perth Brawl 2023, Western Perth's premier ITS event. It'll be on the 25th of November at South Perth Community Hall. It's going to be 4 rounds in one day. Overall winner receives the traditional South Perth Brawl broadsword. At time of recording, it's unclear whether this comes with a kilt or the Berserk +3 skill. In addition to normal prize support, each round has a bounty. So for round 1, it's evacuation with the Guardian Angel bounty for the most extracted civilians and HVTs. Round 2 is countermeasures with the quite professional. Actually, I think that's a typo. It's a quiet professional bounty for the most mission objectives accomplished. Round 3 is firefight with the collector bounty for the most things acquired from panoplies. And round 4 is Cutthroat with the Tier 1 Operator bounty for the most troopers killed by your Keops.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I don't have a link to refer to for that. And if you search for South Perth Brawl, you will probably find a bunch of pub stuff instead of this.
We just do a real quick announcement. CanCon 2024 tickets are live, and last I checked, still available. I did go and check. But at the moment, we don't have any word on format, so whether it's going to be reinforcements or not, which was what they were raising a poll about. Any of the extras they might do, or any of the missions. So at the moment, it's just if you are super keen to go to CanCon, regardless of any of those things, get in so they know how many people that they're going to have. It's always good to have a huge turnout to CanCon, especially because it's the national championships. It is an ITS satellite mission. But the most important thing is if you win, you get to decide whether it's potato cakes, potato scallops, or the favored for the winner at the moment is, I think, deep fried frisbees or something like that.
Crispy frisbees, I believe.
Crispy frisbees, that's it.
But Rob Cantrell put us straight, and he said depends on what if it's scalloped potato, it's obviously a scallop. If it's caked potato, it's obviously a potato cake. So, a very sober and reasonable answer from the this year's winner, Rob. So hopefully next year's winner can be a little bit more controversial and give us something weird.
Yeah. And we have a semi-personal.
Oh yeah.
Go for it.
Operation Heart of the Cards. That's me. Coming down to House of War Saturday, the 2nd of December, for Melbourne's first Resilience Operations and Reinforcements tournament. Woo! We have 3 rounds of Resilience Ops, and as a community, we have decided to test having a Reinforcements optional event, testing how well a standard list pairs against a Reinforcements list. There's a Facebook event for those who are looking for more details.
So, your idea with that, could you have one list that's Reinforcements and one that's not?
Your choice, baby. Up to you.
Okay, right. So it's optional for the list itself.
You don't like Reinforcements, you can have 2 normal lists. If you like Reinforcements, you can have 2 Reinforcements lists. Or if you think you'd like to try it out, have one of each and decide when you get to the table. It's fine, because you pick your list after you get your objectives for Resilience Ops. So, it's you have a lot of information going into the mission before you can decide whether you want Reinforcements or not.
Yeah. And just finally announce just a reminder to our listeners that we do have a Patreon, Loss of Lieutenant, and you can support us for $3 a month. That money goes straight into providing the prizes for the challenges we mentioned just above, as well as Patreon only raffles for professionally painted miniatures that tend to be the ones that we get to review early from Corvus Belli. So if you can, right, spare $3 to help us out, keep supporting our community, and keep helping us put on our competitions and support the Australian, and frankly, considering how many times we've had to send it internationally, the international Infinity community with prizes, support, and hopefully just a little bit of joy. That's much appreciated.
And if you can't commit to financially supporting us, we get it. Times are tough. Just let Aleph know that you like us by liking, following, and leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. Like our Facebook posts, boost them. Show Zuckerberg that we don't need to pay that $25 to get proper engagement on these things.
God.
All right, guys. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we will tackle the new decks.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Welcome back from our break, you guys, Josh, Nick, and our listeners. We are now going to get into the main segment, which is taking a look at the new decks that have dropped. So, for anyone who's a little bit out of the loop, ITS 15 has dropped, and with that has come a new classified deck, which is, as we'll cover really shortly, pretty much the same format as the old classified deck. But we've also got what's known as battlefield conditions and operations cards. Have I got that name right? Objective cards, which more form the basis of the resilience operations. So let's go through the new deck first, and then we'll explain how resilience works, and then actually go through the cards themselves. Should say thank you to whoever in Europe or US who actually leaked these cards to the world, because we've been waiting for them for quite a bit.
Yep. Something Australia international shipping.
Yeah, pretty much.
It happens.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go. Do it, Josh. Click that button. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it, Nick. You put this together.
Okay, so yeah, let's start off with what hasn't changed. Net undermined, HVT kidnapping, HVT inoculation, and sabotage. Oh, and then the next slide is the next one. HVT espionage, mapping, and telemetry. Those 7 haven't changed, with the exception that on mapping they switched the order of the symbols. Probably means nothing, but
yeah,
has to throw it in because someone will pick it out.
Yeah, and just before we go into all the other ones, what are we thinking about the new format of the cards? I think they are a shit ton clearer now.
They're
way clearer.
so much better.
Yeah.
I love the art as well. The art's
I am so glad for anyone watching the stream. Again, first love has always been Aleph, and I think these cards have some of the best Aleph art that they've put out. So Undermine's got Uteros, Kidnapping's got Agamemnon. But yeah, no, the art's
hoplite actually.
Oh no, you're right. It is a hoplite. You are right. It's a hoplite. Even better, because I like the hoplites even more than I do Agamemnon.
That's a great model. Too bad
the profile's a bit. Yeah. That's right. I reckon they'll bring out a character one that's like what a hoplite should be, and he'll be the one everyone uses for the hoplite.
What I like about these is they've obviously paid some artists to do these, because these don't look like they're AI generated. So
yes,
which has been a main problem for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, organized. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say you'd recognize the art because they all come from the books and the box art. Which I mean, I've always been a huge fan of almost any art that Corvus Belli comes out with, from like the covers and stuff of their books, to but one of the things I really like, and it's a bit more old school, but is the more cartoony stuff they have on dossiers and on the some of the boxes.
Yeah,
Well,
great.
yeah. So overall, yeah, the formatting is much nicer.
Yeah.
It's the number is now in the upper left-hand corner, so if you fan your cards out, you can see them. The priority is much better. You've
Yeah.
got the title, the symbols, the requirements at the top, and then if that's not enough to jog your memory, then you can read the details at the bottom.
Yeah, I should point out there has been one big change overall to these cards. Is so yeah, as you mentioned, the numbers are great. I love the fact that they're much bigger, so they're a lot easier to see. Because I can't tell you how many times like a new player plays espionage and doesn't even like realize that these cards have numbers on them. The one big change, this goes just across all the cards, is underneath the title they have something that says designated troop. Designated trooper, which gives it's the same thing that we've dealt with in the old deck. Just gives it, if it has to be an engineer, if it has to be a doctor or whatever, it places it there. But that means when you go and take a look at the description of the objective, it just says a designated trooper, which is referring to that little bit underneath the title.
It makes it much easier when you pull your classifieds to quickly identify what troopers are needed for what cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially for new players, instead of having to pull it out of the block of text at the bottom.
And this is actually more of something to point out for older players, because it almost feels like what was it? What was the name of it? The data tracker? Although because the data tracker used to have to kill the designated target in one of the missions for a while ago. So it's sometimes, even I'm reading that and got like confused one or two times before I got used to it. So yeah, but that's overarching. Every single card is like that now, where instead of saying something with veteran, like veteran elite or a character or chain of command, it just says now designated trooper.
So cards that got minor changes, or specifically minor name changes, follow up became HTV follow up or HVT follow up because it was the only HVT card that didn't specify it in the name.
Yeah, I remember constantly being. I don't think it was much in ITS 14, but there used to be a mission. Oh no, yeah, it was still in some of these where I would have to say to new players, get rid of every single card that says HVT and follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the non-HVT classified missions. Yeah.
And then HVT retro engineering became HVT reverse engineering,
Which is the
same
name,
word.
which is chose a slightly different word. But that's probably easier on newer players, maybe. I don't know. Easier on the multilingual community.
That's what I say. It might be something that's easier for somebody who doesn't speak English to, I guess, understand what it means by retro, instead of like, maybe instead of thinking like old, they think
retro engineering was one word. Reverse engineering is two words.
True. Yeah.
So it's easier to parse out the two different sections.
Yeah.
How's it changed?
Yeah, cards have changed. HVT identity check. There's no line of fire exemption for sensor anymore. Previously, everything needed to have line of fire except for sensor. Now, just everything needs line of fire.
Yeah.
Also, in my opinion, the best themed artwork on any of these cards.
That's good.
It really exemplifies someone trying to check the ID of the HVT.
Just that's like the dragon lady, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a Kaplan looking straight at her.
Let's see. Capture got easier. It no longer requires you to be on the opponent's side of the table. Also, you can capture a model that's been immobilized rather than just in a null state.
Yeah.
So if you
Doesn't
say play
specify the
O12
it
and
doesn't
glue
specify
gun whatever you want, you can capture them now.
it doesn't specify casevacing somebody. I think
Capture is be in silhouette with an enemy
that's
that's
right.
Yeah, you're thinking we'll come to the classified you were thinking in a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. Rescue.
Yeah.
nano espionage changed a fair bit actually. They removed data tracker, which was expected, but now you're required to make a BS attack using your medikit or gizmo kit instead of a whip roll while you're engaged. So this went from using the whip skill in a risky situation to a more face-to-face BS attack to get the job done.
Yeah, it meant that like mostly nano espionage was only really scored against models that were unconscious.
Yes. Yeah.
So this sort of gives a little bit more if you if
Well,
you if you if you're in the last couple of orders of your round and you need
Yeah.
to score a classified, you can ping one out on the and also you get if you're in a fire team, you get two.
Oh, one of my thoughts on this was Hakim has a burst +1 medikit.
Oh
Mm.
yeah,
And in reinforcements, he can go in a Heres.
I'm gonna be running that Rindak, I think, from now on. 40 points for a BS
Oh yeah.
plus one
I-
burst medikit.
Interesting thing about this card is that you still have to be an engineer, doctor, or paramedic. And the reason I point that out is troopers like Pandora
Oh yes.
has a med kit, but is not a
Mhm.
doctor or a paramedic.
Ooh,
And
that is a good point to make.
and I'm sure there's either they'll appear or they already are there where like there's a non-engineer that has a gizmo kit.
I think there's at least one or two others where they're dual class, but they only count as one.
Yeah, they've got like the equipment of a doctor, but generally it's like they're a hacker, but they've got the equipment of a doctor.
Yeah.
Which is what Pandora has.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it also thing is it says this role must fulfill the requirements of a BS attack, which means that if you don't do it to something unconscious, they do get to shoot back.
But at least it's face to face.
True. But yeah, so it does mean that you don't get to do it for free. So it's still a pretty difficult
Right.
one.
Yeah. Next card up. Data scan. Minor changes. The roll is now a comms attack. The previous card basically said everything but that it was a comms attack, including some clarifications that would only apply if it was a comms attack. So now it's just now it's just a comms attack. You do with that what you will.
Do you know what this is? This is them squashing the red and green card together. Take a look at the red card for data scan. You're able to reset against data scan. Not on that's not on the green card.
It is on the green card.
It is on the green card.
Is it?
The green the green card states that the target.
Oh no, that was like a -3. Oh, I thought I was being so smart. Fuck me.
No. So right now it counts as a comms attack. Therefore, you can reset against it and any other benefits or hindrances.
I was about to say, does that mean that firewall? Isn't that for comms attacks?
Yeah, firewall.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, that's different. There you go. I was. Yeah, there you go. Jacob M. Smart.
Which makes sense because if you're scanning their data, you're going through a firewall.
Wow, that means there are some things you don't want to try and data scan.
Yes. HVT designation. Minor change. You picked up the medical symbol.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. I was we were going to move it around, but yeah, it's picked up the symbol.
Yep. And then predator. Much needed cleanup on that. It now triggers if you put an enemy trooper into unconscious or dead states. So NWI no longer prevents you from getting predator.
Yeah. So, like, this is one thing that I know NWI has caused like confusions with these things before. So at the moment, of course, like at the moment, rules is written. Yeah, if you go into NWI, if you go into Dogged, or any of those ones where technically, like, you could go into Dogged and technically you don't count as being like killed, I suppose, by the opponent. If you think about, like, I suppose, true causality of why the thing actually died. But yeah, that's caused issues in previous seasons. So we'll wait and see if there's any FAQ on whether NWI counts. But
I
yeah,
think the change was intentional to make it possible to score Predator off of any model, regardless if they have NWI or not.
It does look like it's removed the end of game clause from Predator, so you score it as soon as you've put at least 2 enemy troopers into unconscious or dead.
Yes, because they removed the bonus point.
Yeah. So I think it's just a way of getting around the fact that I killed 2 units in CC. I've scored Predator. Hang on a second. I've now brought it back using a medikit. Do you still score Predator? You didn't in the old with the old version of the card, but now it looks like you do.
Though triggered on both unconscious and dead, we'll note that the way it's worded, you have to do it to 2 separate enemy troopers. So you can't put one trooper into unconscious and dead and score it.
You can't just coup de grace the same person.
Does coup de grace count as a close combat attack?
It is a CC attack.
No, because what you would do is, because it's in CC, you would because you can just attack the corpse as well. You don't have to coup de grace. Right, but yeah, you get to put. I've never noticed.
Coup de grace is a CC attack.
Okay. No, I know, but like if you really want to, like, I don't know, someone's being really annoying, you just smack them with a CC attack. I never noticed that old Predator rule about at the end of the game. So if technically you beat someone up in close combat and healed them,
so there were 2 types of classifieds. Ones that scored immediately. You reveal a classified as soon as you score it. In the old rules and probably the current rules as well. However, Predator and I believe Rescue were end of game, and maybe even Capture were end of game scoring, which means that you didn't reveal that you'd scored it until the end of the game, which was a way to get the bonus points in for those cards, I believe. What was removed?
Yeah. So what was removed? Last 3 cards of the deck. Rescue, In Extremis Recovery, and Extreme Prejudice. One theme amongst these cards was that there 3 of the 4 cards that had no designated trooper requirements.
And
Predator still being in the deck.
I can understand that, like if you're gonna get rid of Extreme Prejudice, getting rid of In Extremis Recovery, Rescue, getting rid of that. I'm trying to think of, like, the logic behind it. Not that I disagree with getting rid of it, but
the logic of getting rid of Rescue is that there are armies that can't perform it, depending on army composition. So
it's very difficult.
If you have too many Dogged or NWI models, or say you have extra models that don't have an unconscious state, then it's very difficult for you to perform it on
Rescue
your
is
own
exceeding model. is the most difficult classified card, and it is exceedingly difficult for some armies.
I suppose the other thing is because they talked about introducing the extra sectorial. That's an entire army that wouldn't be able to do this because the extra rule would prevent you from ever doing Casevac.
Correct. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know about you guys, but I certainly won't miss any of these cards.
I definitely won't miss Rescue. In Extremis Recovery and Extreme Prejudice, they were nice, easy ones usually, but I'd rather see the meteor ones in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I could leave Predator and keep in Extreme Prejudice or in Extremist Recovery. Either or,
Mhm.
I could replace that with.
Yeah. In Extreme,
But I think Predator's a good one for like
Mm.
you're playing Ariadna, you're playing JSA, anything that's really good at close combat. You pull that card and you're like, fuck yes. Whereas
Shinobu is gonna have a field day.
yeah, exactly. It's always nice to like when you're playing one of these armies, be like, I'm playing Pano, I'm playing like I don't know, NCA. You pull out Predator, and you're just like, yes, this is gonna be fucking easy.
I'm gonna do what I was gonna do anyways,
Yeah.
and get classifieds for it.
Yeah, exactly. What do we think about the removal of any sort of bonus points? There was a couple that still had the bonuses of like I think identity check. You still get the bonus if they're within zone of
This is the
control.
bonus
Oh,
for the week.
you mean like the +3 for certain situations?
Yeah,
Uh,
but the other one,
maybe
that, like
cover that.
getting rid of like the
Bonus
predator
points.
bonus.
I think it's a good change because I like scoring classifieds as soon as you've scored them. It feels a lot less like a gotcha, and gotchas in Infinity gotchas don't have any place in Infinity. I don't think.
Predator is probably one of the. It's one of the cards that requires you to track information that you don't know you need to track as an opponent. All the rest of the cards, as soon as the event occurs, you flip it, it's done, scored, out. Or
Yeah.
it's an end of the game, so whenever the card is flipped, you can check the situation and the requirements at that point. With Predator, because it refers back to a previous event that you didn't know you had to track, I think 2 is probably the limit there. Going to 3 gets a little bit tough because then you're trying to convince your opponent of events that took place 2 rounds ago, and they may not remember.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, I like the new classifieds. I don't think there's anything. Oh wait, hold on. Have we covered?
We
the
haven't
new,
gotten to the new classifieds yet.
We haven't got to the. Sorry, we haven't got to the new deck classifieds yet. Yeah, next time.
No.
We've just done cards that got removed.
Yeah.
Cards
Okay,
that got merged.
so
Ah,
card
okay,
mergers.
moving on.
Experimental drug and test run have been combined into combat support. So that was the doctor successfully or engineer successfully. They have had the contingency that you cannot use a helper bot for these anymore.
Oh, that's it. That's an interesting
Uh,
change.
However, the doctor and paramedic got a buff. So previously, you had to recover someone from an unconscious state. Now you just have to have them recover a wound or a structure, which means that doctors can now score this off of doctoring or paramedicing a multi-wound model that is still conscious.
They can't though because the doctor skill requires the person to be unconscious, and so does the
Oh,
paramedic skill, and so does the medikit.
oh,
So
never mind. I apologize.
that's all right.
The only time you can ever do it to like a quote unquote conscious unit
Yeah.
is
It's
getting
NWI.
is NWI.
Which would count for this classified anyway. Oh, it would have counted for the last one
Would have
classified
counted
anyway.
less. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because they were unconscious.
But the removal of the peripheral servant is interesting.
Yeah.
Because that I suppose that means that you can't that people can't do it with like where like you would have a TR bot, you just have I suppose you still just have the engineer there.
Yeah, I think you just have the engineer sitting behind it.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I suppose now it's more like you got to really think about whether you can actually like get close to them.
It certainly
Let's-
makes it more difficult to complete.
Yeah.
Test run and what was it? Inoculation. Were
Experimental drug.
experimental drug were like trivially easy to, and they still are trivially easy to especially for particular armies. When Hackerslam had experimental drug in the bag, Aleph has test run in the bag. Like it's just yeah, whatever.
It's going to make NWI doctors fucking great because I mean they're already good. So I should say they were already good because they just take a wound and heal themselves. But anyway, yeah, cool. So they merged those ones.
Yeah. New cards. So we've got the pair of industrial espionage and suspected infiltration. One for wounds, one for structure. Both cards have a really nice spread of designated troopers. I kind of a theme with some of the new stuff. The designated troopers are now more diverse and more cards can be done by more types of troopers. So basically with this, you've got industrial espionage, which is designated trooper must be in silhouette contact with an enemy trooper with the engineer special tag or whose troop type is heavy infantry remote or tag. Spend a short seal of an order and make a whip roll with a normal whip roll at +3. They can do this with a peripheral, but they do not get the +3 to the whip roll.
Cool.
That can be done by engineers, forward observers, veteran troops, and elite troops.
A cool card.
Yeah, suspected infiltration
Well, hold
is
on.
the.
Just quickly, interesting that the last bit is the player is allowed to declare this skill near gauge state. So it's it's a normal roll. So you can it's almost like a sort of like not really, but it's like a berserk in combat as far as this is concerned. So if you get an engineer in combat, you can do this +3 to whatever your whip is, but it's a normal roll, so your opponent gets a free hit or whatever.
Correct, which makes this an interesting trade-off of you can suicide in a helper bot, but you don't get the +3 to the roll.
Which is not a bad choice, to be honest.
Yeah, I like it. It's an interesting card.
Yeah. Suspected infiltration is the equivalent for wounds. You have to be in silhouette contact with an enemy trooper whose troop type is not remote or tag, and spend a short skill. Same details apply. Designated troopers for this are doctor, hacker, veteran troop, or elite troop.
Interesting that they put the hacker in forward observer ones.
The other one, yeah.
It like sort of flipped on to what you would normally have put them in, but yeah.
I'm just gonna be a stickler. I'm gonna just be a stickler for our listeners, and I'm going to finish up there and say that So it's you make a successful a normal whip roll on +3. This objective can be completed using peripheral servant, but without the +3. And again, player is allowed to declare this in the gauge skill. So it's exactly the same thing, just not against as industrial espionage, just not against rams and not against tags.
Yeah. One important thing to note on this card is that it is a card that can be completed by a doctor that cannot be completed by a paramedic.
That's a good point.
So that's one that, considering there's a fair number of people or trooper types that can complete it, that might be overlooked. Since I don't think we've ever seen that not paired for classifieds.
My only concern with not so much. Sorry, actually, it's more so with industrial espionage than it is suspected infiltration. Is that picking this card for new players could be a bit confusing because it does rely a little bit on the knowledge of what your opponent can bring. Because say you're playing Ariadna, right? They can very easily take no heavy infantry, no rams, and no tags. Similarly with Toha. Toha can very easy take none of those. So that's my only concern with probably these two cards is that I think the first ones we've ever seen that depend on what your opponent takes, not what you can do.
Yeah, that's a good point because they're fairly broad in what they can target.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point that there are armies that are pretty much free of of most of those categories.
Yeah. So like technically I think you could find a way to do suspected infiltration. if you're playing like Aleph and you take the Marut as your lieutenant. But for the most part, you suspected infiltration, there's always going to be at least one trooper you can do it against. So I have no real concern about that one. It's just that industrial espionage where for a new player, they might pick it thinking it's going to be easy done, and they're just playing somebody who has none of those things.
Also, suspected infiltration doesn't have the hacking symbol, even though it requires a hacker designated trooper. It only has a doctor symbol.
Yeah, true.
Which is, if you're picking it for what is it, supremacy that has the hacking classified? I mean, hacking Intelcom, or whatever. I think it's supremacy that has the hacking Intelcom. That this one doesn't include it, even though it requires a hacker to do.
Yeah.
But the other one, Industrial Espionage has the forward observer and the engineer symbols.
So next new card is Vigilance. Designated trooper types are medium or heavy infantry.
Let's just follow up.
Yeah, Des Trooper must be inside the zone of control of an enemy trooper who is totally inside the enemy half of the table. Spend a short skill, succeed a normal whip roll, and +3 to the whip roll if you have a line of fire to the enemy.
Oh, yeah. So it's follow up against troopers.
Yeah.
Correct. It's follow up against an enemy trooper.
That's fun. I like that.
Much, yeah. Okay, so it's a short skill, so you can't do it in ARI. It's just taking a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
yeah, it's nice.
Whatever. I suppose what it means is that like if I had follow up or vigilance, as long as I had the designated trooper type, I'd probably take vigilance because it's a lot easier to get near an enemy trooper than it is the other way around.
Well, it gives you something to do when you are kind of like, you're trying to skirt around a building within 8 inches of somebody, and you're like, if I spend another short skill, I'll get slightly close to the edge, but I don't really need that.
True, yeah.
Because I'm going to move, shoot in the next one anyway. So, just get my tanko to do a vigilance check instead. Like, I think it's it's a cool little card.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it creates a little bit more efficiency for your movement if you're running up some HI or medium infantry.
And final one is HVT Assassination.
Is that a Keatan? That's a Keatan imposter, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's cool as shit.
Yeah, it's a really good piece of art from the third offensive. Yeah, third. No, I kind of think the
something.
Book.
Some book.
I think it is third offensive.
Maybe it is.
No, I think I'm wrong. Anyway, yeah, it's a really cool thing of it. I think supposedly shooting like a Shazvasti infiltrator. Because there's behind that person getting shot is someone very surprised that person just got shot.
Designated trooper types for HVT Assassination: Lieutenant, NCO, or Chain of Command.
That's so much fun.
Which is very unique.
Very unique set of options there.
I can see this being very difficult for particular armies, but anyway, go on.
Yes. Like everyone can potentially do it, but not everyone has a lieutenant that wants to be that close to an HVT on the other side of the board.
Yep.
So designated trooper must have an enemy HVT inside their line of fire and zone of control. Spend a short skill of an order and make a successful normal whip roll. If the roll is successful, remove the HVT from the board. And bonus, if the designated trooper is in silhouette contact with the HVT, you get a +3 to the whip roll.
So,
we're all thinking it. I'm going to say it. What a nightmare in evacuation.
Yes, that's right. There are some. So, this would have been funny. And I know. Did cryogenics have a classified?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would have been an interesting one for cryogenics.
ECAP doesn't have classifieds, but it would interfere with the with decap if it had classifieds, but doesn't. It's fine.
One of the interesting things that I pointed out to you guys about this card is that if you successfully do the assassination, you lose the ability to stop your opponent from doing capture secure HVT by being near their HVT because you've removed theirs from the board.
Yeah, you want to be very sure that you're going to stop your opponent from doing that, or if they've scored their classified as well already.
Or
or you're happy with getting +1 point for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially it's you, I suppose, going for the win or something like that, or just like the game is not going to be thrown by that 1 point, and you can be sure that if they do secure HVT that you'll be okay, because they only have to have, it's just a trooper, isn't it? Yeah, so they just have to have a trooper near your HVT. Doesn't have to be looking at it. You can have your entire army around your HVT. Doesn't fucking matter, right? They get secure HVT there. So yeah, just sort of, I guess, be careful using assassination, especially because you have to do it with a lieutenant, NCO, or chain of command. Now, I know for nomads, at the very least, one of those designated troopers just doesn't fucking exist, which is the chain of command. They don't have a single model with it, which leaves them with lieutenant and NCO.
And yes, Nomad Lieutenant's famous for wanting to be on the front line chasing down HVTs.
Yeah, exactly. Luckily, I think they've got some decent NCOs. They've got a Gator, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, you've got.
But I don't think a Gator wants to be in silhouette contact with something on the enemy 16-inch line anyway.
Well, look, it can do it. That's all. That's all I'm saying is it can do it.
It can do it. It can do it. You're right.
But
the other option
this will definitely be one that some armies will love and some armies won't.
It's also a 20-point or a 20-point card in some scenarios.
So it replaces what was the 20-point card?
Extreme Prejudice. Extreme Prejudice.
Extreme Prejudice. There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I mean, I like all of these cards. I have I have no objection to any of the new ones. All the changes have, as far as I'm concerned, have been good.
Positive. Yeah, absolutely.
And none of them. The good thing is about it, and this is I think the one thing that like rescue, and even admittedly they've still got it, but mapping could sometimes be a little bit confusing. Is like the way in which you complete complete the objectives, especially rescues like bonus. But even with sabotage, I'm glad to see that they right up front, like really obviously, more so than they did in the last card, say you do this before like the game starts or something. Pick someone's piece of scenery, and that's the one you blow up.
Yes, they reworded a lot of those, or something like that, to make sure that the first thing you read is do this before the game starts.
That's good.
Yeah, which is good.
The I would have, like, with the addition of assassination, I would have liked a rework of the secure HVT rule. I mean, like, there's 20 classified cards, and you can always get rid of one. So I don't know how many games 100 are going to get the assassination card anyway. For some, like for say Shaz Vasti, this is super easy to get because I mean Caliban's are a thing.
I mean, it is still a whip roll, so technically an Azura is better at it than a Caliban.
Whip +3 in silhouette contact. Like, I mean, it's fine.
I'm just saying is the like difference between Whip 13 and 15. Yeah, you're right. I would rather do it with a Caliban as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, any mnemonica trooper done.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You've killed my anathematic. How? But also, I've just transferred its consciousness into something else, and now I have a whip 19 check on my HVT assassination.
But what is nice about, especially HVT assassination, is that the decision of whether to use that as an Intelcom card or not is a little bit less difficult If you're like let's say you're forced to take HVT assassination for whatever freaking reason.
You've got suspected infiltration, or you've got industrial espionage, and you're playing against Toha.
Yeah, something like that. And you've got assassination. At the very least, you can go, it's 20 points. Both, I can't do any of. Or, you in your army, you've got assassination and one that you cannot do. Right? The assassination, you can very much go, I don't want to get rid of Blighted Glass HVT. Right? I'm less upset about using this as my Intelcom card. Whereas before it was coup de grace something was extreme prejudice, which was always a difficult one to get rid of because
super easy.
It's super easy. You like unless you're getting your ass absolutely handed to you, you're going to put things into unconscious. There's going to be things that you can step on their necks and get that really easy classified. Now you look at it and go, not only is it kind of disadvantageous to do assassination, it can also be a fucking pain in the ass to have a model to do it because again it's lieutenant, NCO, or chain of command. And out of all of them, NCO is probably the only one that you'd feel super comfortable getting that close to the enemy.
Chain of command for the Farzan.
No, it depends.
Infiltrating camouflage chain of command.
Interestingly, so it looked like classifieds previously were kind of balanced with their numbers, like in the last deck, with like easier classifieds having higher numbers and harder classifieds having lower numbers. Suspected infiltration is quite a difficult classified to perform, or could be quite a difficult classified to perform, and is still quite a high number. So it's sort of a little like it's got a little bit of spice there as well, because it's like, oh, this is difficult. I've got Intelcom where I can just score points. I'm playing frontline. Just bugger off suspected infiltration.
True.
I disagree because I think suspected infiltration, the actual ability to pull it off, the actual role and going in to pull it off might be more difficult, but the number of opportunities you'll have to do it can be quite broad.
Yeah, it can be, especially if you're viewing this from the lens of a Hackers Lamb player. I'm viewing this over the lens from I don't know, JSA player. Oh, I guess veteran trooper or elite trooper is something.
Yeah, veteran trooper, elite trooper, hacker, doctor, and it's most things on their side of the board, basically anything that doesn't have structure.
Yeah,
and I'd say with the way they've split it, for the most part, doctors and hackers are more common than an engineer or a forward observer.
Big time.
Right. So it might be the case of, yeah, it's that sort of thing of, it's the easier out of the two. Just because you're more likely to be able to have the troops to do it, where you can very easily have an army without an engineer or a forward observer, because if you've got no RAMs, and you've got good hackers and you don't feel like you need the forward observers, you can have a doctor hacker and have no the other ones. Yeah. But no, I don't know about you guys. I like all these cards. I think I think it's a fine deck. I'm not gonna miss most of the ones that they took out.
I'm not gonna miss Rescue.
I don't think anyone's gonna miss Rescue.
But I liked In Extremis Recovery. I think it was flavorful.
Yeah.
You're ripping someone's cube out because you need to make sure they're dead, or you need like very specific information, so you've got to pull. And I mean, Extreme Prejudice was just an easy card to complete, so it was kind of a bit of a free point in some classified things.
I think as far as Extreme Prejudice goes, I think very much Vigilance is replacing that.
Oh yeah, I mean, for most armies, it's pretty easy to get, but some armies it might be a bit more difficult.
Yeah,
that's okay.
If you go to the next slide, just have an overview of who can do the classifieds. So basically, every type of trooper that could do a classified before can now do more classifieds.
Fantastic.
or the same number. The equipment ones can do the same number. But otherwise, yeah, just everyone can do more. It's great. And they removed the cards that had no requirements. So,
Yeah, so the only one with no requirement now is Predator.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Had
another
operatives, you're still useful.
had another note that I didn't make a slide for. The card symbols. So 3 more cards, picked up a second symbol. Basically, there are 3 additional symbols in the deck. 1 engineer, 1 forward observer, and 1 doctor. They're all additional symbols on an existing card.
Yeah, yep. I'd be more into knowing those symbols if they popped up more often.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, they don't. They pop up basically exactly the same amount inside the OTS 15.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like,
but in the future, yeah, there could be some more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then again, I don't. Intel comms is a relatively. It's not a well-regarded rule.
I can see this as future-proofing the deck
Yeah.
to allow more opportunities to use the symbols, be it for infocom or an additional new usage.
Yeah.
I think I've always been okay with the Intelcom like use a card for points thing. I've always been fine with that. But I know a lot of people don't like the if you've got this symbol you cancel out your opponent, or this symbol you get an extra point.
Yeah, that kind of feels like a gotcha in a game that is very good at trying to prevent those, or tell you very frankly that they have a gotcha coming.
Yeah.
The only gotcha that I want in the game is when I say to my opponent, I'm playing Combined Army and I have 14 troopers on the table.
Do I have a Noctify?
Do I have a Noctify?
It's also one.
I don't have a Noctify. They're too expensive.
Yeah, it was also one of the very few bits of Infinity that was purely luck based.
Yes.
There was no skill in drawing that particular card.
Yes. Yeah, because honestly, it just kind of feels bad if you've got like in a tournament, you're like, okay, I'm going to lose this game, but I can keep up. Like I'm gonna be 2 points under them, and then they play a class where like Intelcom +1 objective point.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good draw.
Yeah. Luckily, I think throughout my entire time playing, I think it's popped up. Probably against me once. I've probably done it myself like twice.
Yeah, I've done it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've probably forgotten it more times than I've used it.
Okay. Now,
all right. Resilience card.
So we're on to our actual cards for the resilient. I mean, the ones that really are based around the resilience operations based around. So just a quick overview of these of resilience operations and the way that sort of these cards works is resilience operations allows you to, I guess, every single time you play the game, you're able to have a set of random objectives for actually scoring objective points, as well as conditions on the board, which we'll go through with the battle condition cards. At the beginning of the game, you each draw you draw 2
battle conditions.
Yeah, you do 2 draw battle conditions. You choose one, and then I think some of the cards have a choice on the card themselves.
Yeah,
and then
we'll get
sorry.
Yes,
we'll get into that. Yeah.
And then you draw, like you do that for the objectives. You draw 2 objectives, pick 1. 2 objectives, pick 1.
No, you draw 4 objectives, drop 1.
Sorry, no, that's right. Each of you draw
4 objectives and drop 1.
4 objectives and drop 1?
Yep, 4 objectives and drop 1.
Okay. Yep.
Yep. So you draw 4 objectives out, you drop the one you don't want to score, and then that makes up your 9 points for your objectives that you can score.
Yeah, and then you draw 1 classified.
No classified.
No.
Classified?
The extra point is for scoring more objectives than your opponent.
Okay, yeah, cool.
And there is a mulligan rule for tactical objectives where after you have your 3, if they're still bad, you can spend a command token, discard 1, and draw a new one to replace it. But you get whatever you draw. There's no choice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So yeah,
it's spending of a command token that will probably never happen.
so to reiterate the horrible job I did there, you draw 2 battle conditions, pick one, choose from the battle condition. You draw 4 tactical objectives, and you discard one that you don't like with the ability to discard another and draw another with a command token.
That's great.
Right. And then so you've got each of the cards. We'll go through them obviously. Can score up to 3 points. And
Most are 1 or 2, 1, 2 or 3, but some are just 2 and 3.
Yeah,
it's just how it goes.
And they're and no classifieds. And they're unique. Like they're your tactical objectives, aren't they?
They are your objectives. They're secret until you score them at the end. You reveal them at the end of the game.
Okay, yeah.
When you're doing your scoring of your objectives.
So yeah. So
whereas the battlefield conditions are applicable to everyone, and in the event that both players choose the same one of them, I think it has to do with initiative roll, discards it and just draws a brand new one.
Which is good, which is interesting because part of then the resilience operations, like playing the actual game, is potentially trying to figure out what your opponent's trying to do, because it can be quite overt. We'll get into it when we
It's also very difficult.
Yeah, I've taken a look at some of these cards. Some of these fucking objectives are not easy.
No, they are not.
Yeah. All right. So I divided the battlefield condition 4 categories: terrain cards, visual mods, deployable equipment, and then other.
Yeah.
Because
So in short, we've got they're all just something combat: aquatic combat, arctic combat, desert combat, space combat, jungle combat.
Yeah.
All of them have sort of the same theme of it's either place something or have it something on the center line or a table wide effect.
Yeah. So whoever draws gets to pick one of 2 options. Either they place 2 circular templates on the table that are terrain zones plus some other stuff, or they choose to have the 4 inches of the midline be a terrain-based skill or speed boost.
Yeah.
Depending on which.
Yeah. There are no whole battlefield terrain cards anymore. Yeah, they're interesting. I've not played with one of these because we'll get into what Tristan and I picked for the thing, but they seem pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, so the names obviously like you say, make it self-explanatory. Aquatic combat makes whatever terrain feature you put down, whether it's the strip or the circular template, aquatic terrain. Arctic makes it actually makes it mountain.
That's probably the one needs to be explained to newer players.
Desert combat makes things desert. There you go, Hakazan players, you finally get to use it. Space combat does 0G.
Continuing the Cosmoflot supremacy.
Yeah, the Cosmoflot and Corregidor.
Yeah.
And then jungle combat obviously makes terrain jungle.
Yep.
So for all of the it should be sort of pointed out that for aquatic, Arctic, and space. No, not space.
Aquatic,
and
desert, and jungle.
Right, they're all saturation zones for the 2 circular templates that you put down. Whereas desert combat is low visibility, space combat is white noise.
That's fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, because that's just something that you don't see on the table very much.
Which is interesting. And then the 4-inch terrain gives the +1 to the first move boost for anything that has either terrain total or the relevant terrain.
Only in aquatic, desert, and jungle.
Yeah, aquatic, desert, and jungle.
Sorry.
Arctic and space get climbing plus and super jump respectively.
Yeah.
So the same as the rules for ITS 13 and 14.
So my question to you guys is the circular templates, do they not give the extra movement? Is it just
no? They are they only have the negative penalties from terrain
Right.
plus whatever visual effect.
Right. So the bonus of having the aquatic terrain or whatever is the fact that you get to ignore the terrain effect of that
Correct.
particular.
You don't have to
template.
stop before you enter.
Yeah, so use the terrain rules from the rules document.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which
yes.
is nice in that it doesn't have the issue of some of the previous ITS seasons where you had to figure out whether you wanted to put them down in a place that you could use the visual effects from it, but would that give your opponent a speed boost because they've got terrain total? So now it's actually able to block terrain, and people with terrain total just get to ignore the blockage.
Yeah, I can see, depending on your army composition, some people really fucking loving either space combat or desert combat and putting down those templates. Because if you've got a ton of MSV, that low visibility is fucking awesome. If you've got no MSV and your opponent's one of the more high tech races, space combat's awesome. I think aquatic combat, Arctic combat, and jungle combat will be a little bit less exciting. Although climbing plus in the middle of the table for a Jotun could be very scary.
Yeah. So, aquatic is difficult terrain. Desert is it also? Yeah, they're all difficult terrain. So according to the terrain special rules in the in the thing, they're all special. They're all difficult terrain.
So so for anyone who hasn't dealt with it, all it means is if you don't have the prerequisite terrain or total terrain, as soon as you hit that zone, you need to stop your movement, and then you lose an inch on on your first move. So if you're 4-4, you become 3-4, so on and so forth. So I can actually see that 4-inch strip, or that 8-inch strip, I suppose, in the middle of the table. If you're playing one of those armies that, like, if you're lucky enough to, like, say, play Hakazlam and draw desert combat, that can be fucking annoying for your opponent.
Zooms. Actually, interestingly, according to the latest version of the rules, special terrain features are discussed by the players beforehand. So you can actually the only rule that's actually put into place for the circular templates is their visual mod, their sat zone, their low visibility zone, or their white noise zone. They are also terrain zone aquatic, which generally would mean that that there would be a some kind of penalty, but it's just discussed with your opponent whether you want them to be difficult terrain or not.
All right, so
which means you can ignore them if you like.
That's a good thing.
But that was always an option.
Yeah, that's a good thing for tournament organizers. Looking at you, Josh.
Hey.
Probably worth saying, hey, if you pick this, this is what it means.
Yeah,
so there's no argument.
I'm in the, like, it does state that it is a special terrain zone aquatic or special terrain zone mountain. It should be difficult terrain.
Yeah, I agree.
Or impassable, or like somehow like very difficult for someone without a terrain skill to pass. Because what else is the point of terrain skills then?
I would love to if you drew mountains, and you pick the 2 circular templates. As a tournament organizer, you just have like these little hills that they can put.
Just put mountains.
Yeah,
just balance your model.
No, impassable. No jumping for you.
Okay, so what was the next group of battlefield
conditions?
Next
one was visual mod cards, which are CQB, Night, and Storm.
These I like. These are cute.
These I really like, yeah.
Yeah, CQB limits BS attacks to a maximum of 32 inches.
Yeah, so just like the ITS special rule.
Fail.
Yeah, just like the ITS special rule, close quarters battle. Exactly what it is.
So, being BS attacks, this includes technical weapons and thrown weapons. However, Discover is not affected because that is not a BS attack.
BS attack. You're right.
Speaking of which, Night. Night makes all BS attacks and Discovers over 24 inches take place through low vis zone.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
So
So
um,
that's a real interesting one.
Bring your MSV snipers.
yes,
Also, haven't seen that art before for the night card. Fucking love it. It looks really good.
Yeah.
I think it's a Custodia. Oh no. Yeah,
I
it's
don't.
two Nomads things, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It looks like it.
It's like a Custodia and like a Gator or something. I don't know.
No, there would be a big heavy infantry, but I don't think it. I don't know. Looks cool.
Yeah. And Storm.
yeah. Storm gives anyone with MSV, biometric visor, or X visor +1 to their ballistic skill.
So much.
There are some units with X visors that will pop off if you drop that.
Ryukins.
Or I mean, don't
More bears. More bear T2 rifle.
I was about to say,
BS14.
isn't there an Ariadne one? What's the one that is part of the reinforcements now? The
Lugaroo.
Gurus. Don't they have X
Lugaroo.
visors?
They do have X
Yeah.
visors, yeah.
So there are some troopers that would
Well,
love that.
Risk
BS15.
cards all have MSV1.
Yeah.
as well.
BS15. Sorry, BS14. Hector, because he's got an X visor.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Yeah. There's some. Wait. Hold on.
Backfire Drew's grenade, AEM grenade launcher.
Oh, BS16 now.
Yeah.
I'm rolling 10s, baby.
I don't know if I'm remembering wrong. I think they changed it now, but I thought what's his face Toysa had an X visor.
He has a bio. He had a bio. He's a
He's got
biometric
biometric visor.
and an MSV1. He's got both.
BS15.
Yeah. Choose is great.
BS15
Yeah.
with Storm
Not much to
dropping.
say. I think. I don't know. Like. Then again, I think it's more the people that we have Pano players in the chat, but people tend to not like CQB, but I would like CQB. I love Spitfire range bands are my favorite.
I think I always found the problem that people have with CQB is not that like necessarily they didn't like it, is that they always forgot it and they would randomly remember throughout the game. Like there would be this big shot, and the person who's getting shot at goes, "Oh, we're over 32. You can't do that shot," even though they've been shooting over 32 the entire game.
Yeah.
So I think even Knight will have a very similar. I think each of these cards are going to have a very similar issue where people are going to forget CQB and they're going to forget Knight, and people are going to make the mistake of applying Storm if they get a bunch of it across their entire army.
Yeah, like I tend to find that especially when I'm doing lots of shooting, I tend to fall a little bit into comfort level maths. Where I know the stat of my trooper like off by heart, so
Yeah,
I do my maths from the stat of my trooper, and I don't really take into account this kind of stuff. So
it's like that.
It's going to require ongoing effort on my part to remember.
Yeah, it's like when Forward Observer bots had marksmen. People were like, "Oh, Forward Observer bots are just BS14," when that's not the case.
No, I think Storm is exciting enough that I would remember for the entirety of the game. The other two would be they're not necessarily positive. So
I think the other two are more likely to be remembered than, say, you're playing a tournament with CQB.
Yeah.
Because you have the cards right there.
Yeah.
And playing reinforcement or playing not reinforcements.
Resilience operations.
Resilience. Thank you. You know that you're always going to have two cards there to refer to. So that will probably help it be remembered.
Yeah, I just need to slow down my diaries, doing my maths for my dies, my die results.
No, my concern was just like let's say you're running which I just thought of a Riot Girl fire team, which is fucking gross. But you're using that so much that whenever you go to fire with something else, you might be like, oh, I just get +1 because of blah blah. And it's like, no, it's only because the Riot Girls had the MSV. But I think you're right. The fact that because these cards are bigger than the classified cards, aren't they? They're like big things, aren't they?
They are. They're the same size as classifieds. They're just landscape. So
Okay. Well, yeah, I think you are right though that you're gonna have it there. You're gonna have it in front of it. Well, not in front of your face, but you're gonna have it there on the side of the table. So hopefully, yeah, it'll serve as a reminder.
yeah, I think the thing. I mean, I'm a chronic at forgetting sat zones for the circular templates. So
Yeah.
like, I think the entirety of our game uh in the 400-point limited insertion tournament, Ben and I ignored the sat zones completely. Not through any fault of our own, just that we liked our tags shooting stuff
Yeah,
with lots of dice. So
that was that was a problem with an old mission that had a sat zone in the middle strip.
Power Pack is the
Oh,
same.
Power Pack,
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Where
not.
like
It's still there.
you would have the problem where when you got across the other side, you would either forget the sat zone completely, or you get to the other side and forget that you're not in the sat zone anymore. Yeah. So hopefully having the cards there will help people remember.
There we go. Yeah.
Hey,
The next one is
deployable equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got ambush, which gives both players 3 shock mines to deploy in camo form in their DZ or within 4 inches of their DZ.
right.
And then defensive system failure, probably one of my more liked cards, just because I like the theme of it. Both players get 2 turrets to deploy within 4 inches of the center line, and all turrets are hostile to both players.
I played with this card. Tristan and I played against the table. So we had defense system failure and another one that we'll discuss later. And it was hellish.
I'm just thinking what would be funny if you had the I know it doesn't really pop up in this, but if you had this and the crazy creatures, you're just like fighting these little, S1 like shits that just keep attacking you.
Well, they're S2 now, so
Yeah.
turrets. So
Also,
it was hard. Because
also
you're like,
a good
oh, I'm going to
reason
place
why.
these in a really effective spot to hit my opponent. Oh wait, I now need to get around my own turret that I placed in a really effective spot to hit my opponent. Yeah, it's very difficult.
Also a good reason why if you both flop the same card, you have to redraw, because otherwise you could end up with a game with 8 hostile turrets in the center 4-inch strip.
Or 12 shock mines.
Oh.
Yeah. Some armies are going to love ambush. I'm thinking of like
Yes.
tack that draws ambush is just gonna be like, fuck yes. You're never gonna know what is what.
You deploy them before.
I know, but still.
But you're right. It's still information overload to your opponent. Here's 3 more.
It's 3 more camo markers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's
they're both fun. Defense system failure is a ton of fun. It just means that if you're going second, you get to wipe more than just the 2 orders that you get from like your command token use from your opponent. You also get to wipe 2 orders for killing turrets.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sometimes more, because turrets just like to crit.
Yeah, they just like to succeed. Yeah, I think the ambush one is honestly more of a nuisance because
I would hate it playing as JSA.
Mines can just ruin your day.
They certainly can.
That said, I suppose as like if you're the person deploying the mines, remember that if they discover them and shoot them, they can hurt everything around them. So, but a good defensive option.
Yeah. Yeah, my first thought with that is go, Nazmat, go! See how many you can trigger with your 12 inches of movement.
True. And Nazmat 6'6". 6'4".
Oh, sorry, 6'4". It's the Fanus that's 6'6".
Yeah.
6'4", yes. 10 inches of movement. Possibly more when we get to the next cards.
Yeah. All right. Nothing. Anything else to say on those ones, guys?
No.
Fun.
So the final two, we have hostile civilians and urban combat. Hostile civilians, pretty simple. All enemy HVTs are hostile HVTs.
That's what I played with. There were 6 turrets on the table. Well, no, there were 6 turrets each on the table because the hostile civilians also just popped off with their pistols. I lost the game that I played against Tristan because my dice were awful. My HVTs did more work than every single other one of my troopers.
Just constantly stunning.
Just stunning the shit out of
So hold on. So the enemy HVTs can attack. It doesn't just count for them not getting the bonus to
in the
Civivac.
in the resilience operations, they can be hostile, so they gain the designated target hostile HVT profile.
Oh, interesting.
So they have a stun pistol, they can dodge, they have the whole gamut of skills.
Okay, interesting.
Makes civivacking them a bit of a trouble.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It turns it into civivacking them for you actually like taking them, I suppose, hostage.
Yes.
To, like actually capturing them.
Last one, and probably my favorite that I really want to play with, urban combat. Basically, everyone gets +1 inch to their first move value. If you have terrain total, and only terrain total, you get +2 to your first move skill instead.
Is that an 8-4 Marut? It is an 8-4 Marut.
Oh my god, it's an 8, and no 8 for Achilles.
Yeah. Oh, and note this is the first move value, not the first movement. Because that was in one of the previous ITS.
Yeah, it was the first move skill.
Yeah.
Was
I think the last move value.
And then it was ITS 13 had first move skill.
Wait. Yeah, it's the first move value.
Which means that if you do a skill and then move, you still get to apply your +2 inches, which you couldn't do in ITS 13.
Does that apply for, because what I was thinking after I mentioned Achilles is, does that apply for Berserk?
It's first move value.
It is your first move value.
So yes, it does.
Yes. So
Berserk, super jump, climbing plus, climb, jump, it all counts for all of those things. It's not specific to the move skill. It's your move. Yeah. It's adjusting your movement value.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
So yeah, there are some. Fuck, there are gonna be some armies that get that, and they just. Sorry, shouldn't say armies. There's no armies that necessarily get that because terrain total is sort of
for Shinobu.
But there are some fucking fast profiles. Achilles moves 12 inches. Hold on. Can we think of any? Yeah, the Marut's ridiculous. Can we think of any other broken ones?
Well, I mean, 6-4 on Shinobu is pretty busted.
And that is possibly 7-4 depending on the other battlefield card.
Yes,
because all models with terrain total will get to benefit from any center buff strip.
Yes.
So if your opponent pulls urban combat and you have a battlefield or one of the other terrain combat cards, think very carefully about whether you want to give a speed buff.
Oh, Brando de Castro has terrain total.
Yeah, there's some nuts ones in there.
There are some ones that really love that one. I'm just thinking one that's kind of universal for everyone that probably a lot of people would enjoy is Beast Hunters. Right, 6-4 Beast Hunters.
Do they have terrain total?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Right, which is like almost universal now that you pull that and those guys are nippy.
I mean, they already were with their super jump and everything.
Yeah, but now.
How about 9-2 climbing plus Nimmers?
Not. Yeah, okay. Only in that very specific. What is that? Is that Arctic combat in the middle of the table?
Arctic, jungle, or aquatic? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, no, not okay. Climbing. They have climbing plus natively.
Oh, they do, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Numbers are so
So
good.
as long as that's a boost strip, yeah, 9-2.
This really like it's starting to feel like Mario Kart almost.
Yeah.
Right? Like they
It's Rem
they
Racer.
yeah, they already felt sort of Mario Karty when they like last season. Now they because it feels like you hit the middle and just like pew. The only saving grace is they get out of that zone very quickly if they're going straight forwards.
So favorite cards? What cards are you most excited to see paired up on the table?
Look, I very much enjoyed the pairing of hostile civilians and system defense failure. That was a lot of fun.
That's very funny.
Uh, the urban combat and any other terrain skill zone sounds pretty fun as well. Um, yeah, I'm
I'd like
looking
to.
forward to Storm as well. Storm
Mm.
looks like a lot of fun.
I kind of would like to see um like I think we've all had sort of enough exposure to the like terrain ones. They make sense why they're there,
Mhm.
but it's sort of that said, I suppose desert terrain and storm could be fucking nuts for something with MSV.
Yeah,
But
because they're low vis zones as well as
yeah, as well as
yeah.
you've got the +1 to shoot. But I think I'm most excited for CQC CQ yeah
CQB.
CQB yeah
Mhm.
CQB. Close quarters battle.
yeah. I like I've always sort of liked the idea of that extra. I know a lot of people don't, and I'd like to see it on the table.
I'd love to see it on the table. I think it's really neat. A neat way of playing. But I
I'd,
love
I'd,
Spitfires, so
Insert Marge Simpson meme.
I'd like to see CQB and urban combat.
Yeah,
oh
So
yeah,
everything
Knights
has
of
short
Graffiti.
range and is faster.
Yeah, nice.
I think I do like the idea of the cards that like equally affect everybody.
Hmm.
Um, More so than the like the terrain ones. It's like knights you can see hostile HVTs, the turret,
Hmm.
ambush, and the urban combat. I like the idea of just changing the battlefield condition for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, but that being said, it's only really a very specific sort of army that will particularly like one of the terrain cards anyway. So I suppose those cards just negatively affect everybody.
Hmm.
Yeah. The it's interesting that they included turrets and hostile civilians and only gave them one card. But you know, it opens up the opportunity of having extras,
A
I
lot of
guess.
this looks like future proofing, where they can have different decks, either a new deck every few years, or have multiple decks in rotation.
Hmm.
Yeah. They might
One
just
thing.
add cards to the
What
conditions deck.
what they could honestly do is have it so that when you talk about rotating cards, have it
Mhm.
like let's say like a blue green red deck, and
Yeah.
that none of them are hard or anything. They're just different,
Hmm.
and so you can be like, oh, this tournament's a resilient tournament, and we're using the blue
Hmm.
resilience deck, or like
Yes.
each
Yeah.
round is like this is the blue round, red round, green
Hmm.
round.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Because Resilience Ops is a tournament format,
Hmm.
it's not a mission, which means that all 3 rounds have to be resilient. Well, don't have to be, but it's designed to be all 3 rounds of a tournament. If you're playing a 3 round tournament,
Mm.
all of the rounds of the tournament are resilience operations. Um, the um, by having some extra variety in there by having rotating decks would be really cool. But obviously, that's time. That takes time
Yeah.
to get there. They need to
Had a
see how this goes first.
had a thought on the battlefield condition that I wanted to run you guys by guys. Um, think about options of using it outside of resilience operations. Um, so thinking like a tournament where you've got your standard missions, but at the start of each round, the TO draws 2 battlefield condition cards, and those apply to every table at the tournament for that round.
That'd be a lot of fun. I'd
That-
really like that.
Yeah, that's a cute-
Ignoring all the other terrain conditions.
You would have to pick missions appropriately.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's cute. Yeah, I think that's quite
yeah, I
cute.
like it a lot.
Especially with the like quantum shit that's going on
yes.
at the moment.
Yes.
It's like, you're in the middle of the city and suddenly it just turns into a desert and you're like, what?
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. It's going to be good for this season for sure.
It's
Absolutely.
good. It's definitely a good like narrative idea.
I like it. Like it a lot.
Mm.
Resilience cards, objectives.
Yes. Okay, so I broke these into 5 categories. Area control.
Yep.
HVT objectives. Beacons, beepers, and objectives. Oh my. Killing and stuff, and other.
And so, just to remind our listeners, these are the ones that form your 3 missions for the game. So, whatever these cards are, whatever you end up picking, these are the ones that determine really whether you win or lose the mission. So far we've gone through the classifieds, which don't apply for resilience operations, and the battlefield conditions, which have got nothing necessarily to do with points. These are the ones that are actually replacing the objective points from the old ITS in resilience ops.
So first one is area control.
Yeah. So these work pretty much the same way. There's 3 of them that have 2 zones, and 1 of them has 1 zone. Central control is central control, N domination, Z domination, all have 2 zones. Basically, there's 1 on your opponent's side, 1 on your side. If you dominate at the end of the game, you get 2 points for the 1 on your opponent's side, 1 point for the 1 on your side.
Yeah.
King of the Hill has an 8-inch radius at the center of the table. If you dominate it, you score 2 points. Or if you subjugate it and dominate it, you score the full 3 points.
So we went over this last episode. Dominate is what we're all used to, more points in a certain section. Subjugate is sort of like an area control. So it's the same as controlling objectives, where you subjugate it if you're the only person in that area.
Not quite.
No?
I reread it when I was doing this going over the cards. Because of how it's worded, it is possible to subjugate the zone and not dominate it. And in that case, you get nothing, because you have to dominate it first. It's possible to do that because troopers in marker state don't count towards subjugation,
I would
but they
agree with
do
you.
count toward domination.
I would agree with your interpretation, but there is the sentence after it says, so there cannot be any enemy troopers inside the quadrant or sector. So a marker cannot subjugate, but it
But it
also it stops your opponent from subjugating.
Where's
because you can't do the control whatever as a marker.
Only one with at least 1 trooper as a model, not a marker, inside the area. So there cannot be any enemy troopers inside the quadrant or sector.
Yeah, which means
so no enemy troopers, and your trooper has to be a model. Yeah.
This is Nick's turn to think that he's big smart man.
Okay, I got that wrong.
Big Brian.
Okay.
So
thank you. That makes sense now.
Yeah. So just quickly before we go, King of the Hill, as I said, it's King of the Hill, right? If you're playing Infinity and haven't heard of the concept of King of the Hill, I don't know how to help you.
Think back to your Halo play.
Anything. I mean, if you played Perfect Dark, there was King of the Hill. If you played fucking GoldenEye, there was King of the Hill.
I want my Halo announcer to be announcing stuff over the top of my Infinity games.
Yeah.
King of the Hill.
So central control is 8-inch strips, right, from the middle. So there's area A, area B. They're 8 inches long. So is that the same size as Frostbite? Is that bigger than Frostbite?
Same size as Frostbite.
because it's 16 inches wide. This that's the same as Frostbite. Okay, yeah. So as Nick said, you get more points for the one that's closer to you. So all of these are like closer to your deployment from your deployment.
Mhm.
N domination and Z domination are both the same sort of thing. It's about a quarter closer to you and a quarter further from you. The only difference is that one is it's flipped. So it's either A is on the left and B is on the right, or B is on the right and A is on the right and B is on the left. It's the only difference.
So with N and Z domination, I really like the simple elegance that they did, making them called N and Z, because the N and Z, if you trace out the letter on the board, the two quadrants that you start and end the letter in are the two quadrants you need to control for that type of domination.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's very good.
That is cute. That is yeah.
It's oh,
It's really cute.
Very elegant.
Yeah. These ones don't seem horrible. They are also at the end of the game.
Mhm.
All of them are at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I should specify. All of these objectives are at the end of the game. There are no end of game round ones.
Yeah.
In resilience objectives overall, there are no end of game round.
Yeah. Sorry, but yeah. So, which means I think one important thing that we'll probably see with the resilience operations is if you're running an operations tournament, making sure people run to time and get through all three things.
End of the game is end of the game, whether they are slow playing themselves or not. End of the game is end of the game.
Okay, for the players, it's really important that they get through all three turns, especially if you're like me, that sometimes aims for like end of the game win.
Yeah.
But I think as far as like figuring out what your opponent has to do, if they're sort of grouping around things, then you probably know that they've got one of these. Central control is probably the only one that would be difficult to figure out because it's just be in the middle.
It is nice that, with the exception of N and Z domination, they all overlap in some areas of the board.
Yeah.
So you can probably tell that your opponent's going for territory, but you might not be able to tell what they're going for until either turn 3 or the end of the game.
Do I just get a single model into the middle so they don't score King of the Hill, or do I have to commit points to a particular objective zone so they can't get anything?
Could only imagine if you drew N and Z domination. If your opponent is going like aggressive as fuck on you because they have to be in your like side of the board, probably have drawn both of these.
If you draw both of these, like your other two have to be
You
very
discard
bad
one of
for you not to discard one of these.
True.
For sure.
That might be a command token situation.
Yeah, maybe.
Because all of them can be done together with the exception of N and Z domination.
Right. Yeah.
Though it would be an interesting game if one person had N and one person had Z.
You're
just trying to dominate theirs that are completely mutually exclusive.
It's like it's just like two ships
broadsiding
each other. That's all it is.
I'm here. I'm okay with that. You're there. I'm okay with that.
Wait a second.
It's a game of like it's like one of the most passive games of Infinity you've ever watched. Because
remember, you do not want your opponent to score objective point.
Yeah.
All right. What's next? HVT objectives.
Yes. So we've got hijacking and silence. So hijacking is the Civivac. So you get 1 point per HVT in Civivac to a maximum of 2. And you get a third point if one of those HVTs is in your own DZ. So you can only score off of 2 HVTs for that.
So
silence?
I suppose just to remind, there are 4 HVTs on the board.
There are 4 HVTs. There are 8 HVTs total. HVTs total.
Oh, no wonder that hostile HVTs was fucking gross.
It's nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Silence.
much fun.
You need to. You get a special remove HVT short skill. Need to be in the zone of control and line of fire of the enemy HVT. Make a normal whip roll. On success, you remove them from the table.
So, yeah.
The first HVT you remove is worth 1, and the second one is worth 2 more for the total of 3.
Yeah, also good to note, you won't know. So battle conditions are selected after the initiative roll, whereas objectives are selected prior to picking your army list, which means that you don't know when you pick hijacking, you don't know whether you're getting hostile civilians or not. So just be careful.
So
Picking hijacking.
silence is pretty much it's like it's like assassination, but for like it's pretty much just assassination.
Yeah, it's basically assassination, except for you don't get a bonus if you're in silhouette contact.
Yeah, and anyone can do it.
Oh yes, and anyone can do it.
Yeah, so that's one thing overarching for resilience operation is that there is no need to have a specialist to do any of these objectives.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. I mean, I would say that if at first I'd probably want to get rid of these cards if I could, because dealing with HVTs and Civivac is just always annoying. It's always order intensive.
Silence will be fine. It's
Silence
kind of
is-
doing what you're already doing.
Silence is fine, especially because the HVTs have to be further up the table.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, look, silence is fine. It's still just always a sort of a pain to. But one good thing I suppose about this is it is an objective that you can complete mid game.
Yes.
Like you can get rid of a HVT, but like, okay, I've got 1 point. I suppose the only other issue with it, which is not so bad, is that it is obvious. It is super obvious what you're going for as soon as you go for it.
If you're in line of fire and zone of control of and you're performing a normal whip roll and you have hostile civilians, they can just shoot you back with a stun pistol for free, which means that you need to be careful that your piece that is going to take out these HVTs doesn't get stunned.
Yeah.
One thing about silence, like I said, it is an immediate score. So once you do it, they're your points. Your opponent can't take them away. But once you kill the first HVT, they know exactly what one of your cards is.
Yeah.
And can take moves to directly stop you.
Yeah.
So probably good to line up 2 HVTs to kill in 1 turn.
Yeah. I will mention that as much as like HVT is annoying to deal with, which is why I wouldn't want to do hijacking, they're also fucking annoying to like defend against these sorts of objectives. Because I remember in like an unmasking, you could grab one of the HVTs and draw it back into your deployment zone. That takes a lot of fucking orders to do.
If you do pick hostile civilians and your opponent does have silence, and you can just put your hostile civilians in full line of fire of everything that they do. So anything that they do is going to incur a dodge or a stun, or a lookout or something. They can react as normal troopers. And your opponent has to be tempted, should be tempted to just shoot them, which means they cannot score silence, because scoring silence is not being shot. It's you're scoring a normal whip roll, and HVTs are removed after they lose their 1 wound. So a little bit of tactics involved.
Does stun stop you from doing this short skill?
Yes.
No, because this is a normal. Well,
stunned.
It is a normal whip roll.
Stunned, you cannot declare any skill other than
they've got like a set of them, don't they? Yeah.
No, it just says you can't do an attack skill, but
that's what I'm saying. This isn't an attack skill.
Yeah, but most all skills that are objective focused. Like there's a precedent set with ITS that all.
I mean, like at the very least, if you're stunned or whatever, it's at -3. I'm pretty sure. Like
it'll be a -3.
It'll be a -3. So at the very least, you're making it harder for your opponent.
That's true.
So,
But if they shoot them, if you force them to shoot them by putting your hostile civilians in the way of their troopers and causing them to stun things, then they can't score this thing. So you're making you're making your opponent's life very difficult.
It's also a risk because it's a normal roll. So that stun shot is unopposed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So hostile civilians with any of these two, any of them, but both of them can be really annoying.
A nightmare. Yeah.
Especially if they do hostile civilians and then deploy them all in a clump, so they're watching each other.
Yeah.
Beacons and beepers and objectives. Oh my!
Right. Let's take turns going through all of these ones because there's quite a few.
Yeah.
Nick, you can have the honors of starting off.
Okay. So beacons first, and as a reminder, those are the 2 destroyable things you deploy at the edge of your deployment zone. 2 possible ones: appropriation, which is capture an enemy beacon. It's 1 point for capturing one, and 2 if it's in your half the table, 3 if it's in your DZ.
Right.
So you only score off of one of them, and you get more points the further back it is.
Yeah.
Interrupt the signal is damage enemy beacons. You get 1 OP at the end of the game for every structure that any of their beacons have lost during the game, to a maximum of 3.
So you could conceivably, I don't know why you would do that and do it, but you could grab your opponent's beacon, bring it back, and you wouldn't get the point once you did this, and you could smash it up.
You could, but this means you can take both of them at the same time.
Yeah. There's 2 beacons, so you could grab one for appropriation and destroy one for interrupt the signal.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, you could, for whatever fucking reason, pick up one, move it back, and then destroy it.
Of course you could.
Correct. Yeah, you could have a forward. You could have a forward deployer infiltrator, grab it, pull it back to someone who has charges, who can more easily destroy it, since it still has the normal AC2 rules for destroying it.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't?
Nope. There are no rules apart from it has its stat line, and that's it.
I am.
So it doesn't have the defense system.
Nope, no defense system, and doesn't have a. The only thing it can be targeted with is the engineer special skill, but there's nothing. It can only be damaged by weapons possessing the anti-material trait. So that includes missile launchers. DA.
So there's no CC requirement on it.
No CC requirement.
I did not read this over very well because I was tired last night when I put this together.
Yeah, it's fine. No, Kevin put a question in the patron chat while we were recording this and asked if they could be, and I had a quick read while we were discussing other things. And yes, it doesn't look like you have to declare CC against them, which means don't put them in open line of fire against your opponent who has missile launchers. Done. Easy.
Yeah. So hide that.
Hide them.
Yeah, certainly hide that.
Reminds me of the old.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old. Oh god, it wasn't tic tac toe. What was it called? Commoray or something like that. Used to be one where you had to activate objectives and then you could blow them up. You got points for doing both. But you could shoot them.
I don't know. No,
yeah,
it wasn't.
I can't remember. I'm sure. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Again, just to remind for the next objective, what beepers are. They're a deployable that every single trooper gets. The specialists get an extra, load of it. So it's like disposable 2 for specialists, and it's just put down like any other mine.
Yes.
Right. So the next objective is triangulate the signal, which is at the end of the game. You get 1 objective point, maximum of 2 for each of the beepers that you've put down in your enemy's half of the table. You get an extra point if any of those beepers are fully inside the enemy's deployment zone.
How fun.
So I suppose a bit of a theme for at least these 3, which is getting very close to your enemy's DZ.
Yeah, a lot of these are like. I mean, they need to have increasing difficulty to have those 1, 2, or 3 extra objective points.
so far from what I'm seeing, probably other than silence because it's just like do it again. These are like more and more difficult to get the extra
Mhm.
points.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, most of them are 2 points is easy, and then the third point is doing one of them better.
Yeah.
Mhm. And lastly, objectives are each player places 3 when they're setting up the table for resilience ops. Each player places 3 objective markers on the table. They're your standard either 40 mil objective tokens or a piece of scenery, your choices. We have 2 classifieds based on objectives. We have guard the supply lines. At the end of the game, the player gains 1 objective point for each of their own objectives they control. So you're guarding your own objectives. And appropriate supplies. At the end of the game, the player gains 1 objective point for each enemy objective that they control. Objectives are placed anywhere in your half of the table, or is it anywhere in your...
Within 8 inches of your DZ zone
There you go.
or
So
DZ board edge. Yeah.
depending on how you, as a discussion of players, how large you'd like to make your DZs, because there's no prescription in the Resilience Ops rules. It could be, 16, 20, 24 inches up the table.
Yeah. And to remember with this, they are pieces of terrain that you can move. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? Tactical elements, which you can go up and grab and move around.
Just like
So
just like the
controlling your
beacons, and
opponents.
imagine.
Every single one of those is a tactical element, and you can pick it up.
So beacons, beepers, and HVTs are all tactical elements as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So I can probably see that guard supply lines is probably one that a lot of people would
It's
pick
pretty easy.
off
Yeah.
the back.
Yeah.
Especially if you go first.
Yeah, because can Rems pick up can Rems pick up tactical
Yep.
Yeah,
elements?
anyone can.
Everyone can, with the exception of baggage. You can pick up 2.
Yeah, so I can see a lot of flash pulse bots with their 6 move doing a lot of work in resilience ops. If you grab this card, they just run up, grab the objectives, pull them back very easily.
Absolutely.
And I think this
Healing and stuff.
Go for it, Nick.
Okay, I'll start. Decimate enemy forces. 1 objective point for every 25% or full 25% of the opponent's army that you have killed. That pairs up with survival, which is 1 OP for every full 25% of your army that survived.
Easy. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. It's just annihilation on a stick.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
Do you want to take decap?
They're just all killing.
Killing or don't be killed, and yeah.
We've got decapitation at the end of the game. The player gains objective points based on the number of enemy lieutenants that they have killed. 1 is 2 objective points, or 2 or more enemy lieutenants is 3 objective points.
So lieutenants aren't like they're not open information in resilience, are they?
No.
Okay, so this one, this is the one I can see a lot of people piffing, because
it kind of depends on who you're playing against, right?
Yeah, but your lieutenant tends to be a pretty hard target one way or another, even like depending on like if it's the profile, if it's the if it's where they're positioned.
True.
And
you just pick your list towards
the problem I have is when it gets to the 2 or more lieutenants, because you do 1 turn loss of lieutenant, which means there's no lieutenant on the board. Kind of.
You have to get it in it. Yeah, you have to get it in 3, and you have to find the enemy's lieutenant. You're only really scoring 3 objective points on this if you're absolutely smashing your opponent.
Yeah, or you them well enough that like, okay, that's the lieutenant, and then that's the chain of command. You've got something like that.
Then again, in turn 3, if you're going second, and you've killed their lieutenant in turn 1, and they're starting their second turn loss of lieutenant, and then their third turn in with their new lieutenant, generally speaking, if you've managed to kill their lieutenant in turn 1, they're at a point where maybe you're having to use their lieutenant order anyway for efficiency. So it then becomes do I play one order down or do I reveal who my lieutenant is to my opponent?
True.
So there's a few little things.
So this is lieutenant has been killed, capital K killed, which means that it's dependent on their state at the end of the game. So if you put your opponent's lieutenant in an unconscious state and they bring them back up, they are no longer killed at the end of the game.
I can probably say this is, as like from what we've covered so far, the hardest objective, and I can see a lot of people wanting to get rid of that.
Yeah, big time.
Yep.
I would almost hazard to say that unless you specifically go out to do this objective, like you say, I'm going to pull this objective, I don't think we're almost ever going to see this one on the board.
Yeah, I mean, unless your opponent is playing combined army and they say their whip is 16 or 17, so you know they've got mnemonica, which means you can always check who the lieutenant is. Like it's going to be very difficult to score.
Yeah,
this one.
So because these are drawn after you pick the army.
No, before. So
Yeah,
you can pick the army based on.
No, you list. You pick your. Sorry. After you know your opponent's, after you know the table and what army your opponent's playing, and then you pick your list based on what objectives that you.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, stand by. This is not going to be seen too much.
There's probably a couple armies that can reliably take this, but I'm thinking infiltrators, like multiple infiltrators.
Yeah.
And it also depends on, or sorry, not infiltrators, impersonators.
Impersonators.
Yeah. And it depends a lot on what your opponent's army is still. Yeah. So if you know that they're playing a sectoral that's going to have a fire team, that's likely going to have a lieutenant in it, maybe. But yeah, I think this is probably going to be the lowest priority card, the first one you pitch.
Even playing an army like Bakunin, which have pretty soft lieutenants for the most part. I'll still have 3 moderators that are identical to the lieutenant profile. So at the very least, with like one of the softest, like as far as profile goes, lieutenant, you still have to make the guess. And then once you kill them, I get to put that lieutenant order anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And our last one is priority target. This objective is revealed after the deployment phase. The opponent must publicly choose 3 of the troopers that they deployed on the game table. They cannot choose troopers in hidden deployment, hollow echoes, or decoys as priority targets. At the end of the game, the player gains an objective point for each priority target that they have killed.
One of my favorite things thinking about this particular one is you reveal this and go, I'm going to pick that flash pole spot, and your TR bot.
No, you don't pick. Your opponent picks. They pick for you.
Oh, the opponent must typically choose. Oh, okay. No,
they
I take that back.
pick their models that are your targets.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah. I take that back. Sorry, I misheard that. That's okay. That's fucking real rough.
I pick this net rod, I pick this net rod, and I pick this net rod.
Yeah. Yeah, no, sorry, I take that back. That's rough as fuck.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard one, but it's fun. So it can't be hidden deployment, can't be hollow echoes, can't be decoys.
Well, this one I'm not sure about the wording because you cannot choose a trooper in hidden deployment, you cannot choose a hollow echo, and you cannot choose a decoy. So, because if you read it as you cannot choose troopers in hollow echoes, doesn't make sense. So I think you can't choose the hollow echo.
No, hollow echoes is a marker state, so all 3 of them are hollow echoes. But you could deploy a hollow echo trooper without deploying their hollow echoes, which makes it the normal one. So I mean, you can pick something in a marker state, like you can pick an impersonator or a
camo
or a camo marker, which means that I would assume that it's perfectly reasonable for you to drop your, I don't know, hollow masked Luduan down that you've hollow masked as an Aragoto, and then go, that's that Aragoto is what you have to kill. And then, oh wait, no, it's a Luduan. Now there's 3 of them. Which one do you have to kill?
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. Just a little bit of shenanigans, bit of shell game.
Would you like? I suppose it doesn't say to mark them, does it? It's just he publicly
Publicly
chooses.
choose.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah.
about to say, like, if you put it in Hollow Echo, would you have to be like, this is the one I picked? But you don't have to mark them. You just have
No,
it just has
even
to be
if
the
you did
real
have
one.
to, even if you did have to mark them, Hollow Echoes take on the states of their owner.
No. So
Um,
often what it's been is, you have to mark the trooper, so you wouldn't be able to mark the Hollow Echoes because they're not troopers. But that's not the case here anyway.
Yeah.
This one is interesting, mainly because like mainly because your opponent has to pick. I think depending on your army, if someone says I'm gonna play, let's say Shazvasti, I would probably ditch this card. I could.
After deployment.
No,
No,
so
no.
it's picked before deployment though.
Yeah, as
So
as in they've said I'm playing
get rid of
Shazvasti.
it. Yeah, yeah. So you get this card, and then you reveal it after the deployment phase. But if your opponent is playing Hackislam or Shazvasti, you go, nah, can't be bothered.
Yeah. Anything
or tack.
Yeah, anything that's just going to make it fucking annoying to even shoot at the priority target, I probably want to get rid of it. Look, but that said, if I got this and decapitation, I'd be happy to get rid of. I'd get rid of decapitation first. This one I could sort of live with at the very least. They're going to potentially they're going to deploy in such a way that they're going to have to pick something that might be like their active piece. Like, oh well, I can at least try and kill that.
Yeah, I think that decap and priority target are going to be picked when you either want a bit of self challenge. So maybe if you're playing against a newer player, and you want a bit of self challenge, or if you just like you want a fun thematic kind of game, I think priority target is going to be a super fun mission to play, which I think is outside of a tournament setting. That's kind of what you're there for, right? Priority target, it involves your opponent. If your opponent's game to make it a little bit more fun for you as well, then they'll pick something that isn't the 3 net rods that they're deployed in the back of their deployment zone. But even if they have, God, how fun would that be? Just like, oh, now I get to activate my speculo, try and kill one of them.
But that's the other thing about the resilience operations is you're supposed to take all comer sort of lists. So in preparation, or like the possibility of I have to have priority target, you probably are going to take something with combat jumper parachutists or something like that, so that
you are probably taking an impersonator, a superior infiltrator, or a parachutist in an all-rounder list anyway. So unless your army specifically doesn't have access to them, but I think that like in any one of those combinations, I think every army does.
Yeah, they'll have something like that. Yeah.
I think priority target is perfectly fine as the 3rd card. It's not going to be one of the favorites, but I would definitely take it over decap. I would definitely take it over having both N and Z domination. It's doable, but it's going to be something that I try to get done on the way to doing something more solid.
The having killing one of those priority targets counts as you scoring this objective, which means that you still get the extra point if you score more objectives than your opponent.
Yes.
It's not about objective points whether you score more or not. It's about the actual physical objective cards that you score. So even if you can't get all 3 objective points on this one, like if you can get one of them and you get more, it's still worth 2.
Yeah. and it's
technically.
and
or
it's
one
That's
of
a
the
good point.
third.
It's probably one of the easier cards to get one OP from.
Yeah,
and it
I think
also
so.
means that if we were talking like about like infiltrators and stuff. If you say I'm playing JSA, your opponent might go fuck, right? He's probably got Shinobi. She's probably sitting there right outside my DZ. I'm gonna have to pick a hard target, like something that's really valuable, that you would have want to go for anyway, because he doesn't just want to pick 3 soft squishy things that Shinobi's gonna go bam 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 and kill. So this is, like I said, I still think like it's close to decapitation in like priority of what I want to get rid of, but it, like you said, it does interact with your opponent. It does make them make potentially really difficult decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's just fun. I think like while it's not an easy one to score, it'll be fun to play.
Yeah,
Like Cryogenic's not a particularly easy mission to score 10 in. Bloody fun mission though.
yeah, true.
So yeah, and that's what we're playing a game.
Yeah,
We're playing a game. We're not here to win.
so
Sometimes,
what,
unless you Val.
what's our next category? I think, is this the last
Other.
one?
Yeah, this is the final card.
Cyber Siege, which is what almost
It's
sabotage on a
sabotage plus minus some.
plus minus plus 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 minus
Yeah.
minus minus.
So it's basically sabotage with requires more. No.
I think
Okay.
I think
Go
we're
ahead.
going to have to read out this card because it's so unique.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So after the initiative roll, before deployment, the player privately chooses a piece of scenery that is totally inside the enemy half of the table. A trooper must be in silhouette contact with the piece of scenery, spend a short skill of an order, and successfully make a normal whip -3 roll. The player gains 2 objective points. If the piece of scenery is totally inside the opponent's deployment zone, they gain 1 extra objective point.
So what's super interesting about this card is 2 things. A, it doesn't have a 1 objective point thing. You can only score 2 objective points off it. Secondly, it's the only card where you get to, at the very beginning of the game, choose how much this card's worth.
Yep.
Right.
You have to decide how risky you want to go.
Yep. So I can see this one very much. Anyone with a superior infiltrator, like a really good one, like a fucking something, an impersonator, anything with big infiltration, or like you've got a parachutist, anything with anything with deployment zone parachutist. You're gonna take this one because you're going to go plop, spend a skill, 3 points. Thank you very much.
Whip -3.
Whip -3. It might not be 1 skill.
I tried to score this one against Tristan, and I had to suicide a grief operator because of a very well placed turret that I placed. I placed that turret so well, and it cucked me. I had to suicide a grief operator, but while they're whip 13, they're also just whip 10 for this, which is 50-50, and I did not score it. And I still did, and then after I didn't score it, my opponent knows what piece of scenery that I tried to do it on.
That's a good point.
So they it was very difficult, and it didn't happen. So yeah, it is a difficult one. But yes, if you've got parachutist deployment zone or parachutist, yeah, I mean it's pretty easy.
My concern on this card would be it is going to be dependent on the table.
Yeah.
And depending on your meta and what terrain looks like in your meta, this could be a super easy one. It could be a mediocre one, and it could be a next to impossible one.
I think this one is going to score 2 points rather than 3 points more often than not, which is probably why it doesn't have a 1 and 3 point, why it's a 2 and 3 point. Just because it has to be totally inside your enemy's deployment zone.
Yeah.
And the amount of time that buildings cross both, like cross over the line for deployment zones, or a piece of scatter will cross over both,
Yeah.
and like it'll be like half inside your energy deployment zone. It's going to be really difficult to score all 3 points realistically, unless you've got Van Zant that can drop down and just score it.
And how
on their
how,
backline.
yeah, and how many pieces of terrain have we seen that are just like a long thing that goes, stretches half the table?
Yeah, so it's got to be totally inside your enemy's half the table or totally inside enemy's deployment zone, right? So, it doesn't have to be half. Yeah, totally inside the enemy's half the table. So, I think realistically,
That's doable on a large table.
I would much prefer to score this as 2 rather than 3.
I think
Because I can put something down on it, whether that's a superior infiltrator or an impersonator, and if and very safely, they are prone on the scenery that they need to do, just press it, and then if I don't score it, just spend another order and press it again. And I've got 2 points, and I've got 3 points if I score more objective points than my opponent. So I think I'd much rather go for the 2 over the 3 here.
Yeah, I think I'd have to look at the opponent's side and go, is there a small piece of scatter that's near a board edge in their DZ?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like if you're playing Hackers, you just have it for day. You just sit on one thing and
that's what that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
it's a little bit more difficult than doing some of the other like normal classifieds that are similar because
sabotage only requires you just to place D charges, right? So
sabotage. In my experiences with sabotage, a lot of times when I get out the tape measure and actually measure like is this building completely inside their deployment zone, a lot of times opponent will look and go, it's like a millimeter or 2 over whatever. That's fine. It's close enough. We'll count it as fully inside. This you can't have that discussion with your opponent until after you've committed to it. So
yeah, I mean, totally inside is totally inside.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to err on the side of millimeters.
Yeah.
But like, I think just don't pick something that's like fully halfway across and go. I'm going to argue that that's in your deployment zone.
Yeah,
nah, sorry, man.
I mean, like just do it. Like it's one of the things where it's like everybody should, when you're playing a game, just like measure up your opponent's DZ just to check it out, especially in resilience operations. Just know what the board looks like straight away. Everybody should know like where the deployments go up to and all that sort of thing, so that
that's a discussion with your opponent as well, because resilience operations doesn't have a prescribed deployment zone size. So I guess it's up to the tournament organizers.
Yeah,
for me to decide.
16, right?
No, 12.
I think about it. It's decided on a roll of a d20. You get 1 inch.
Six.
You get 1 inch deployment zone. Suck shit. You want to deploy that tag? Nope.
I like that a lot. Deployment. It's d20 plus 5.
Oh no, a d6 times 4.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting. I could do that. I could see that working. 6 inch deployment zones.
Yeah,
done. Yeah. I for me, this one is an efficiency one. Like you're going to pick the easiest thing to do, and you are going to score 2 objective points.
Again, I suppose that's a third one. Interesting one about this is one of the other ones that you can score before the end of the game.
Yes. Yeah. Once you do it, it's done.
Yeah. It's locked in. So you still reveal at the end of the game, but your opponent knows you've done it.
Well, so. Yeah, I think you could probably reveal this as soon as you've done it.
Yeah, I can definitely see now, like in the guise of that, picking the 2, getting it done in the first 1 or 2 orders of your turn, and then being able to just play the rest of the rest of the game dealing with fucking
the rest of his
the
stuff.
decapitation and priority target that you were forced to keep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also like with the general's thoughts now that we're onto that.
Mhm.
There's some great synergy with some of these. That one we just looked at, Cyber Siege or whatever it was
Mhm.
called, right? Really works well with the N and Z domination.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll pick something in a zone that I have to dominate anyway. Put my infiltrator there. She's pulling double duty as holding this thing down and rolling it up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any three combinations of the domination ones are going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun to figure out whether opponents doing King of the Hill or Center Line or N and Z domination. I like King of the Hill. I've always liked something like King of the Hills. The idea of subjugating such a big zone as well speaks to me because it just means I've killed my opponent anyway, or done a really good job of keeping them out of an 8-inch circle, which is pretty, a 16-inch circle, pretty big.
Yeah, it's a big area to hold. I think like overall, I think CB's done a really good job of
Mhm.
these. I think there are combinations that make your life really easy. Like we said, you get Cyber Siege, you get one of the dominates, and maybe you get like the control your own things.
Guard the supply lines, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
so like secure supply lines. You're kind of on easy street there, kind of, because
I'll piff those and pick something fun instead.
yeah.
I think
But
I like priority target. I think is the most fun for me. I think I'd really like to just have a game where I play that and I just go, yeah, I'm gonna see what you think is the hardest models for me to kill,
yeah,
and I really want to kill those models.
yeah. But I think CB's done a really good job of putting
Mm.
these together. I think like there's some difficult synergies, there's some really easy synergies, there's some just sort of like you get them combined and things are kind of difficult and kind of easy at the same time. Um, but overall, like I can honestly say that like unless I pick four really terrible, even if I pick four really terrible objectives, I still get to get like sorry, like two really terrible. Like if I get priority target and decapitation, I really don't want to do them. All I have to do is use a command token, and then I just
Mhm.
don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Um, so really, the if you don't, unless your like plan of your list is
Mhm.
command token heavy, you really don't have to deal with crappy objectives. You can get rid of enough of them that you can make your life at the very least manageable.
Mhm. Yeah. I think similar to the battlefield conditions, these feel like they're set up to be able to have multiple decks and have rotations through because so many of the actually, or even just have a second deck that combines with the first because there's
Mm.
so many elements on the board that only interact with one or two of these cards.
Yeah.
There's only one beepers, there's two beacons, there's two objectives, there's two HVT cards. Uh, there's so many elements on the board that you've just got a or 1 or 2 in 20 chance of your opponent interacting with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have it. You could have one that's like recover your opponent's beepers, where
Mhm.
you have to like do an in extremis recovery, and you get to take like
Mhm.
like you're taking their beeper,
Mhm.
sort of thing. So
I
you
mean,
get
the problem with that is it predicates your opponent on getting a beeper, putting a beeper
Correct.
down.
no,
And
but
right now, there's
no,
only one card that would cause them to use beepers at
no,
all.
no. What I'm saying is, if they don't put beepers down, you can take it off the unconscious
Oh,
body,
oh, the gosh, body. Yep, fair
Oh,
right?
enough.
okay.
But
That makes sense.
if they've got
I like
that
that.
one where they have to put their beeper down, you can
Mhm.
grab like you
You
can
can grab it.
control their beeper.
Yeah,
So like
yeah, I like it.
there's plenty of ones like they could
Mhm.
put in like what's it called, like frontline,
Mhm.
all right, frontline sort of things. Um, where like it's how much like they've still got like control bars.
Mhm.
I don't know, potentially control like vertical ones. I don't know how you do that, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Interesting that
there's
they
a
put four zone domination things in, but like, and then lidded this thing with objectives and didn't really interact with like as much with them. But I think you've only got enough. And you need to put you need to put your new rule in that you put subjugate. You need to put
yeah.
at least one card with all of these other things in. So yeah, I get it. But
yeah,
Oh, yeah, like subjugate only works on one card.
yeah,
Hostile HVTs only come up with one card. Turrets only come up with one card.
Beepers only come up with one
Yeah,
card. Yeah,
beavers only come up with one card. Uh, there's a lot of elements that, again, back to it looks like they're trying to future-proof the
yeah, big.
core rule set
Mhm.
so that later on they can add in more content.
Yeah,
it almost feels like they could like set it up so that a tournament organizer can go,
Mhm.
we're doing resilience operations, and your deck must be these cards.
Yeah.
Right, so
yeah.
he can pick like, oh, I don't want any of the area control ones. I just want it to be like the ones that interact with HVTs and things like that.
Oh, I hadn't even gotten to customizing a deck
Yeah.
because I
I'm just thinking like
the
what you're talking about, like the like the
Mhm.
future proofing, combining decks and
Yeah.
things like that. That's just like what that idea like in my head is like. Okay, you have right, you customize your tournament by customizing your resilience operation objectives, where you're like, okay,
Mhm.
I just want it to be involved with I don't know, HVT, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The like I think that this is there's a really good like standalone title. I am sort of excited to see where they go with any additional content, but I think that I'd have to play 40 games of Resilience Ops to even start getting the same game again. So I think that like this is these future discussions about future proofing and stuff like that. All well and good,
yeah.
but
Now
it's not necessary.
I don't want to put this out. Shouldn't put this out in the world, but I'm going to do it anyway. Is the ability to customize your own resilience deck.
Oh yes. For the objectives,
Yes. So
yes, I think that
you
could
walk up
be
with your
a
like a stack of
farther future. Yeah.
like a stack of 12, and you're like, this is my resilience deck. I don't know necessarily what I'm going to pull, but I've stacked it so that it's objectives
Mhm.
that this army list I wrote really likes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Because as it stands, the battlefield conditions feel like a full deck. Like that feels complete. The resilience objectives to me feels like it needs another 4 or 5 cards. Because I think there's too many tactical elements that only interact with one thing. Therefore, if you interact with that one thing, your opponent knows exactly what your objective is. As
Yeah.
opposed to like the 4 area control cards, which have some overlap. So you know what direction your opponent's trying to score points, but you it's possible for your opponent to hide behind the possibility of having multiple cards. Uh,
I think that's my only a
mhm,
small qualm about these resilience operations is that
mhm,
often the ITS missions have you sort of fighting over something.
yeah.
Whether it be like control of a particular console or something, or like a
Mhm,
room, or just areas of control. Because the objectives in this are separate,
mhm,
you don't necessarily end up fighting over anything. I know part of the game is to try and figure out what your opponent's trying to do so that you can
mhm,
try and stop that.
mhm,
Um, but I feel like um, there's just they could be. I mean, like we already talked about it. If someone draws N domination, other one draws Z domination, you literally
mhm.
want to be in different quadrants, and there's no disadvantage for you going and saying, yeah, you can have that. Well, as far as your scoring goes, right? You can have that quadrant. I'll take my quadrants.
I mean, you want to I've played one game of this.
Mm.
Mhm.
which means that I've like a little bit of experience. In my one game, I did not pay attention at all to what my opponent was doing because I was having such a hard time doing what I was doing. That will obviously come with time. But the first couple of games of it, I was not the first game and probably the first couple of games, probably the first 10 games, I will not have any idea with what my opponent is trying to do. And that will come with time. And that's the real skill focus of this mission. This game type. The skill focus is memory, knowing what the deck of cards is made up of, and seeing what your opponent's doing and trying to deduce what they could be doing for their objective points and stopping them from doing that while also scoring yours. So uh, it's probably a little bit more skill. Like scoring high is quite skill intensive. I think, and it will benefit people with a broader knowledge of the game more. But then again, that the game does that generally. It will reward people with better memories more than anybody else, though.
So, had another thought on trying to hide what objective cards you have. So, obviously, a lot of them, if you interact with something, that signals that that's your card. However, you
Nothing
also only
stops you from
have
objective.
3 cards. So, if you do something like interact with an objective piece that, or technical element that isn't your objective, you could throw your opponent's prediction on what your other cards are by making them think that they've solved all of yours.
Put a beeper down
Yeah,
in your opponent.
put a beeper down. Put a missile launcher into one of your opponent's objectives. Um, I think some things that are very simple, one order type things that can throw your opponent's count off.
Well, like I was saying with the new follow up card,
Hmm.
you you kind of sometimes want to do something other than move with your second short skill anyway. If
Yeah.
you have if you have something in the enemy's half of the table and you only want to move once, just put a beeper down.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That'll
Oh,
that'll distract them.
yeah. Fire a rocket randomly at a beaker. Sorry,
Yeah,
not a
at
beeper, a
Hmm.
beacon.
a beacon. Yeah,
Yeah,
or
Yeah.
punch
that's a
something.
good point. I mean, that almost feels like a game more in kin with what Infinity is, which is that sort of
Hmm.
like
Black
counter,
Ops.
like the
Yeah.
Black Ops counter intelligent operations sort of things, where it's like,
Hmm.
you know, doing something that like contrary to what your actual objective is.
Hmm.
The other thing I like about this is you mentioned it sort of with the narrative, like campaigns with the battle conditions, is
Hmm.
I think playing this is almost like a version of highly classified.
Hmm.
Um, would be sort of interesting because the objectives are overarching.
Hmm.
So there's a million ways to skin a cat,
Yeah,
really. So you could adjust this mission format in any way. This is only one way
Hmm.
that it takes focus. There might be, eventually there might be a battle conditions card which changes the way that you select your objectives,
yeah,
which could be very interesting.
Hmm.
There's there's lots of things that could be different.
yeah. But I think ultimately for all three of us, it's just gonna have to take actually having a try with these decks for a lot longer than we have
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
I'll
But
see you on
yeah,
Thursday,
see
Jacob.
you tomorrow
See you
as the day of
tomorrow.
as of
Recording.
recording. Look to your left. No, fuck, you're right. No, I was wrong. There we go. I'll stare at you. But yeah, the hold on. Put your fist up and look like that, just for like a shot. There we go. There you go. Someone can screenshot that. Um, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty fucking excited.
Yeah.
For this thing.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
excited to run this tournament. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for people to have no idea what they're doing.
I just had like even now I had another thought of like a tournament. You just like as a tournament organizer, you pull out like cards. Be like the first round is this for everybody. The
Hmm.
second round is this for everybody. The third round is this for everybody.
Yeah, it would be an interesting way to do the battle conditions. I think that the
No, I was
part of
thinking.
the
I was
juice
thinking of
of the
just like the objectives, just like
part of the juice of the objectives is having different ones too. Apparently, I
no,
think.
no. Sorry, I'm saying it's more like a tool for
Oh
like
yeah,
making. I'm not saying as in like you do like a tournament like completely. It's just like a tool for generating tournaments that aren't ITS.
Yeah. Oh,
I,
big time.
I
Yeah.
think this resilience operation is a fucking good idea.
Yeah.
I just now that we got to the end of talking about all of them, and I'm just thinking, and we're thinking about like how it can be used. All I can think of is, oh, I could do this. We could do this.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of community projects that have had this as this sort of style of thing. For example, our local Hendrik had his 2020 system for has had his 2020 system for ages. The and it's nice to have some official support for it. But I mean, look, this was always an option. We could have always done this. It's taken CB to do it for it to become sort of widely accepted, and hopefully, this will become something that everybody likes to play. It's definitely going to be my preferred way of doing pickup games for sure.
Yeah. I don't see how you couldn't enjoy it. Other than the fact that CB do such a good job of putting together ITS missions.
Oh yeah, I mean, ITS missions are great.
Yeah. That's the only part of them like sort of kicking themselves is that they do such a good job with ITS. Yeah, so yeah, there we go. Rubbing Helios on the back a little bit. What about you, Nick? You like them?
I like them. The more I've talked about them tonight, the more little combinations and nuances I'm seeing, and I'm looking forward to trying them. I think this is an excellent place to start with this kind of parallel system, both for casual and for potential tournaments as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what it does in competitive setting.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna get the deck. I'm just gonna sit there like drawing 4 cards, getting rid of one, and being like, what would it be like to play this? Then doing it again, and then doing it again, and finding like combinations that I hate, combinations that I like, and be like, okay, I want to look for these. But yeah, all right, I'm gonna go off. I'm going to keep thinking of ways to fuck around with this deck until
This will be a
the
4-hour
heat death of the
podcast.
universe.
Okay, you want another way to toss into here?
No, go for it. I've spoken enough of them. Go on.
One more.
Draft.
Yes. I would love to do a draft.
Okay. I'm gonna have you explain it to me, right? Because there's gonna be at least one more listener that doesn't get what you mean by saying draft.
So draft, normally done for CCGs, basically got you take a pack of cards, you open them up, you take one card, you pass it to your left, and that goes around until the that pack runs out. You open up another pack, pass it to your right until that runs out, and do that for however many packs.
So you draft a battle objectives deck.
So I'm thinking, yeah, it wouldn't work for most competitive tournaments because it would be more time intensive.
Yeah.
But if we had more cards available, we could have custom packs. And I'm thinking more like so in War Machine they had a caster draft where it was a draft, but they were all pre-constructed decks, and you just randomly grabbed one. So that way, certain cards that were comboed well appeared in the same deck. Yeah. So it was difficult to draft both of them.
Yeah.
So if we had more of these cards, do something like that, and have start the round, everyone sit down in a group, draft which objectives you get, and then everyone goes back to the tables and plays with what they got.
Yeah. That'd be good for like a group of 5 friends hanging out over like a day doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. this has been awesome to talk and really explore the new decks and resilience operations in full. Look forward for next month's challenge when it will definitely be play resilience operations.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
if Josh and I can do it before we even get the fucking things, you can certainly do it once you've actually got them. I'm excited. I know you guys are excited to see how this shapes up, how this changes
Yes.
casual, competitive Infinity. But only time will tell.
Certainly will.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to another episode of Lost Lieutenant. I've been Jacob.
I've been Josh.
And I've been Nick.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.